We're going to call the meeting to order. Probably we need one of those mallets we had last night, you know, to bang. Pile drivers. Good morning. We'll have Secretary Adu please call the roll.
Regent Bartel.
Here.
Regent Bailing. Regent Bradley.
Here.
Regent Drew.
Here.
Regent Evers. Regent Balbo.
Here.
Regent Higgins.
Here.
Regent Rybar.
Here.
Regent Manydeeds.
Here.
Regent Milner.
Here.
Regent Pointer.
Here.
Regent Pruitt.
Here.
Regent Roberts.
Here.
Regent Smith.
Here.
Regent Tyler.
Here.
Regent Walsh.
Here.
Regent Whitburn.
Here.
All are present.
Full house. Good morning again. Before we get started, on behalf of the board, I'd like to express our appreciation to Chancellor Lovell and his team for their warm welcome this morning and last night. I know it's not easy when our show rumbles into town, but yesterday's groundbreaking for the School of Freshwater Sciences, as that showed, there's a lot going on here at UWM, and we look forward to seeing and hearing a lot about that in the next couple days. It's a pleasure this morning to officially welcome 3 new colleagues to our table. Regent John Bailing of Eau Claire, Regent Regina Milner of Madison, and Student Regent Tracy Rybar of Franksville. By way of some brief introductions, Regent John Bailing is Vice President of the Weld, Riley, Prien, and Ritchie law firm of Eau Claire. He advises on regulatory, environmental, zoning, permitting, and public relations matters, and also provides advice to local government leaders. He previously served as an aide to Governor Tommy Thompson in Washington, D.C. and in Madison. He is currently serves on the board of directors of Sacred Heart Hospital Foundation and is a member of the Eau Claire Chamber of Commerce. He graduated from UW-Madison with a B.S. in political science and economics, attended Georgetown University, and earned his law degree from the UW Law School. John, would you like to say anything?
Good morning, and I'll just briefly mention what my professional biography does not indicate. I'm a farm kid from western Wisconsin, the youngest of 9, and a 2-time UW graduate. I have 2 teenage daughters that are actively beginning to look at UW schools, and so being on the board will give that a unique perspective. I also wanted to mention, as the vice chair had indicated, I'd spent 10 years working in the Thompson administration and now 10 years working in private practice. Many of you I've worked with before in previous capacities. In fact, the one thing that you never forget is who gives you your first job when you graduate from UW. And that person would happen to be down on our right-hand side, former Secretary Mr. Jerry Whitburn. So certainly it's a pleasure to meet with the people I haven't worked with yet, and very good to be back amongst some friends and very respected colleagues yet again. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Regent Regina Milner has been involved in commercial real estate for more than 30 years as a lawyer, as a consultant, as an appraiser, and a broker. During that time, she founded 2 consulting companies and worked with public and private sector clients on a variety of complex real estate projects. She's very active in the Madison community and has chaired the boards of numerous organizations, including the Rotary Club of Madison, the Wisconsin Alumni Association, and the Madison Children's Museum. Regina is currently on the Chazen Art Museum Council and the Wisconsin Museum Task Force. She earned her law degree from UW Law School, a Master's of Science in Real Estate and Urban Land Economics from UW-Madison School of Business, and her undergraduate degree at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Regina, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Thank you, Regent Smith. I'm honored to be part of the Board of Regents, It is a responsibility, and it is a challenge, and it is something that I appreciate being part of as we look forward to the future. I would also like to thank Governor Walker for my nomination and giving me the opportunity to serve this fine institution. Wisconsin became my home when I moved to Madison in 1975. And it has been my home of choice for the past more than 35 years. And that's significant because being raised in a military family, I lived in 10 states and 2 countries in the years before I came to Madison. So my geographic experience has been broad. As Regent Smith said, my link to the system is through the Madison campus, where I was at both the law school and the Graduate School of Business. And my links with that campus are both broad and deep, and I'm in the process of extending those links to the other comprehensive campuses and colleges throughout the system. I've already had an opportunity to visit 2 of the campuses, and I look forward to visiting the rest of them in the coming years. I'd like to share just a story with you. I was thinking about this last night. And I'd like to share something that happened to me. When I moved here in 1975, I was a stay-at-home mom with three active little sons, and I didn't pay too much attention to what was going on in politics or in the city. I was really pretty focused on what I was doing at home. But either in the newspaper, I believe it was a newspaper article, I had an opportunity to see a woman who was on this board all those years ago. And it was one of those strange circumstances where you follow someone that you never have an opportunity to meet, and it was Joyce Erdman. And I have an enormous respect for the contribution that she's made to this board, and if she made a fine contribution, and if I can succeed in doing just a fraction of the fine things that she did for the system, I'll be very proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Regent Tracy Rybar is our new non-traditional student regent. She's been active in the small business since 1996, serving as a business manager for James Rybar Trucking, a family business located in Raymond, Wisconsin. She received her associate degree science in accounting from Milwaukee Area Technical College in 1984. She made the decision to return to school in January of 2011 and is now pursuing a double major in economics and business management with a finance concentration at UW-Parkside. She's planning on finishing her Bachelor of Science degree in May of 2014. Tracy?
Good morning. I decided to return to school when my youngest was driving. Like Regina, I spent many years raising my children, and I'm a lifelong Wisconsin resident from the small township of Raymond, which is just inside Racine County. So I get both newspapers, the Milwaukee Journal and the Racine Journal. I feel part of both communities. I feel very lucky to be able to go back to school, and to be honest, I'm having the time of my life. It's a huge different perspective from being a returning student. I'm loving even the general education classes that we have to take. I like every one of them. I am a huge fan of the UW system and feel very honored to be able to function as a regent to help that system. My 2 older children are graduates of the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, where they had a great time and received a great education, and even more importantly, from every parent's perspective, are self-supporting. And I thank the UW system for that goal, if nothing else. My 3rd daughter and I are both just finished our sophomore years. She is at Madison, and she's pursuing a degree in civil engineering. We compare notes on exams and professors and schedules all the time. And my youngest is currently a junior at Waterford Union High School, and I am very much encouraging the choice of the UW system school, but as a parent, we can only do so much. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed and hope that goes well. Thank you very much for having me, and to the governor for appointing me, and I look forward to my tenure. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Well, welcome aboard again to all 3 of you. I know I speak for all of my colleagues and saying we look forward to working with you and getting to know you better in the years ahead. I would say, looking at today's agenda, it would appear we're breaking you in gently. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe that wouldn't be the... Kevin, you've got a few introductions, too.
I do. Thank you, Regent Smith. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. I did want to say that I told Regent Bailing when he was nominated and that any regent who worked for a law firm with Riley in the title of the firm was okay with me. So we're happy to have all of you regents, welcome. There are several other people in the room I would like to acknowledge. They're not new faces, most of them, but they're familiar faces in new positions. So first, I am very pleased to welcome Faith Hensrud, a longtime faculty member and academic leader at UW-Superior, who was recently named the new Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at Superior. I don't know if she is with us yet. She's not. Okay, Renee. But you sent her our regards and congratulations. I think we have Pat Klein with us, do we? Is Pat here from Eau Claire? Maybe not. Okay. Pat is the officer in charge at UW-Eau Claire after Brian Levin-Stankiewicz, the chancellor, left to go out west to be a president at Westminster College in Utah. Pat who is the provost at Eau Claire, graciously agreed to step in as the officer in charge before the interim chancellor arrives in July, Gilles Bousquet. So our best to Pat. Now let's see if we're 3 strikes and out. UW Stout. We wanted to welcome Mary Hopkins Best. Is Mary here? No, okay. Mary is the next person I know is here because I've already met him. Mary Hopkins Best is currently the Dean of the College of Education, Health, and Human Services, and she's been appointed interim provost at UW Stout. She'll start that job on July 1, serving until a permanent provost is found, we hope, by the start of the next year at UW Stout. I'm also pleased to officially welcome Mark Nook as our Senior Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs. Mark served in that job in an interim capacity for the better part of the year, as you know, and he knows what he's getting into, and he still wants to do the job. So we're very grateful that he stepped up. And then finally, a special international guest we have with us here today. He is Ahmed bin Masoud Al-Kindi, who is the Dean of the College of Economics, Management, and Information Systems at the University of Nizwa in the country of Oman. Ahmed, he's there. Please, welcome. Thank you. Some of you will know that 3 of our institutions, led by UW-Oshkosh with UW-Madison and UW-Platteville involved, have a special relationship with the University of Nizwa in the country of Oman. It's a remarkable place. Chancellor Wells and I had the opportunity with Tom Grogan, who's with the Dean, to visit this past February. The University of Nizwa is 85% women students, is that right, Ahmed? Yes, 85% women students on a campus that's growing by leaps and bounds in the country of Oman, which is a very important friend of the United States these days. So we're delighted to have the Dean here, and he brought a number of his students with him who are not here today, but will be traveling around in the state and a number of our campuses. So we look forward to seeing them. Thank you for being here. With that, Vice President Smith, back to you.
All right. Well, before getting to our first item of business, someone said we had an election Tuesday, so I'd first like to congratulate Governor Walker on his victory in Tuesday's really historic election, and we look forward to continue to work with him and his administration. There's also the 4 state senators or state senators-elect, and we congratulate them as well on their wins on Tuesday night. We're going to start this morning with a presentation from our host campus, and for that I turn to Chancellor Lovell.
Well, good morning, and I want to welcome all of you to UWM and to Milwaukee. The theme of this year's meeting is termed Building a Better Wisconsin. And as you will hear, it's all about 3 Ps, places, programs, and people. And starting yesterday afternoon, and over a period of about 48 hours, UWM is showcasing how it is trying to build a better Wisconsin. A quick review of our activities that we have going on. Of course, last night, many of you were able to attend the School of Freshwater Science groundbreaking. This afternoon, Vice Chancellor Christy Brown will be giving a presentation to the joint meeting of the Capital Planning and Budget and Business Finance and Audit Committees on construction underway and beyond at UWM. On Thursday night tonight at 5 o'clock, we are going to be having a dedication of our Zillwer School of Public Health, and our Dean, Magda Peck, will be talking a little bit later about that. And I know all of you are invited. We're excited for this dedication to be taking over that building downtown at the PAP site. And on Friday morning, we are going to have David Gilbert from our UWM Foundation and Brian Thompson from our Research Foundation presenting to the Research, Economic Development, and Innovation Committee here at the Regents tomorrow morning around 9 o'clock. Now, to build a better Wisconsin, I think it's best for us to start when we talk about places. In fact, we are currently under $300 million in capital projects on our campus. And to put this into perspective, we've done $320 million in capital projects over the last 22 years. So when we talk about the transformation of this campus, we're changing faster than ever in terms of our physical infrastructure. And for those who were not able to attend the groundbreaking of our School of Freshwater Sciences last night, we prepared a short video for you to see what happened last night and how excited we all were who were able to be at the groundbreaking.
1, 2, 3, go! I want to welcome everybody here today, which is really a historic day for UWM, Milwaukee, and the state of Wisconsin. And the creation of this building is literally something that's been dreamed of for more than 45 years.
The research being done here is first class, with implications not just for water management here, but worldwide.
You know, UWM has made enormous strides in its research without facilities.
I want to welcome everybody here today, which is really a historic day for UWM, Milwaukee, and the state of Wisconsin. And the creation of this building is literally something that's been dreamed of for more than 45 years.
The research being done here is first class, with implications not just for water management here, but worldwide.
You know, UWM has made enormous strides in its research without facilities commensurate with its scientific expertise. With this building, we are changing all of that.
The future looks bright, very, very bright, for our water cluster.
We can say now truly that the boundaries of the university go beyond the boundaries of the state to the Wisconsin waters, and through them, from them, they roll out to encompass the rest of the world. So you're on a roll, UW-Milwaukee. Keep it going.
It really was a historic day yesterday for our campus, from the city and the state. And to talk to us a little bit more about what it means is our founding dean of the School of Freshwater Science, David Garman, who's going to make a few comments about the building. But before I bring him up, I just want to describe to him some of his credentials and how excited we are to have him here at UWM. He is the past president of the International Water Association, and he's considered to be one of the 3 to 4 top experts in the world on clean water management. He is known internationally. Everywhere I travel and we talk in places talking about water, they all know David very well in his work. And we feel very fortunate to have attracted him from Australia to be our founding dean. So, David.
Thank you, Chancellor Lovell, and good morning, everyone. And at the last meeting of the Regents, you asked for a fish fry, and we gave you one. And you ate our research. But today I'm going to tell you a little bit about the new building and the sort of differences it's going to make. It's going to host the Great Lakes Genomics Center. It'll be the nation's first research center dedicated to application of groundbreaking genomic and molecular tools to issues of freshwater sciences. These are the same technologies which are used in medical research, but what it's going to give us is safer water, safer beaches. It's going to develop new technologies and both revolutionize treatment and management of water systems. The Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District has already, in fact, just last week, committed $1 million over the next 5 years to be able to participate in these research activities. And we're expecting some more partnerships with international companies in the next few months. Our biosecurity suite, which is also in this building, is a high-level security which enables us to study pathogens and diseases such as VHS, that's an Ebola-like virus which attacks fish, not only in the Great Lakes system but around the world. And this combination of quarantine, pathogen, aquaculture, testing facilities linked together will be the most integrated and advanced in North America. We're going to be expanding our aquaculture facilities, so you can have more perch next time, to include a partnership with USDA, and we expect to conclude the extension of this in the next few weeks, to include areas of producing organic food for fish and new methods of disease control, including probiotics. The Water Technology and Engineering Suite is going to bring together researchers from all over the campus to look at aspects of nanoparticles, sensors, engineered biomimicry. That means making engineered systems the same way as natural systems, and robotics. Our Atmospheric Science Suite will incorporate modeling of climate change, ecosystem dynamics, and urban stormwater management. And just urban stormwater management, for example, the potential liabilities around the US amount to something in excess of several $100 million. So anything we can contribute to that is going to be a major. But lastly, the Center for Water Policy, with our new endowed chair, will link excellence in science, economics, and sociology to development of productive water policies for the future. So this building will help revolutionize water research by attracting the best research and preparing the best students. It enables us to reach out and link with other colleges in the UW system and forge new international links, and I referred to some of those yesterday. It's going to go further than that, and it's not just about graduate research, it's talking about research going into STEM, and we heard some success about that announced yesterday, and also into undergraduate programs, which we're one of the leaders in the state on that. And finally, to complement all these land-based activities, we're moving into the next phase of securing and building the most sophisticated research vessel and floating laboratory in the Great Lakes. This building really provides the catalyst for the vision of Milwaukee, assuming a lead role for water research in Wisconsin and the world. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. As I said last night, we've been doing groundbreaking research for 40 years in a tile factory. Just think of what we can do. We have a world-class facility. So I mentioned already that we're doing $300 million in capital projects here at UWM. And I wanted to provide a brief update for those of you who visited us last June on what's happened over the last year. But before doing so, there's some people I want to thank. We could not move forward with these projects with not a lot of help and coordination with the Department of Administration, the Building Commission, and particularly David Miller from UW System. David has just worked tirelessly with us to make sure these projects kept moving forward, and we've been very grateful for that. And Vice Chancellor Christy Brown will give many details in her presentation this afternoon about these projects, but I think it's important that I highlight about how we're moving forward. And the first one is the Kenwood International Research Complex. It's a $75 million building that's really going to help transform the science on our campus. We're going to be breaking ground on that project this December. The Northwest Quadrants, which we purchased a year ago last December, a year ago when I stood in front of you, there was no one even in the building. Today, I'm happy to say that we have 500 faculty staff offices that actually moved into the Northwest Quadrant, which is the old Columbia St. Mary's Hospital. Our Honors College has relocated to the site, and as one of the students told me when I was having lunch with them at the end of the semester this year, it really gives them a Harvard feel. In the reading room and the sunroom that they have in the library, it's a really nice, small setting environment. It really helps them in their studies. You're also going to be hearing about how the plans to relocate our Children's Center over to the site in a year or two. And our College of Health Sciences, which is one of our fastest growing programs at the university, will be given 3 or 4 floors to really grow and expand the programs that they offer. Right now they have up to, for every 7 students that apply, only 1 can be accepted in some of the programs just because we don't have the space, so that's very exciting for us. And we're also very excited that we received a $2.4 million UW system grant to build state-of-the-art classrooms for our School of Education over in the Northwest Quad, so we're very excited about that. Many of you are probably also familiar with our Innovation Park project. The City of Wauwatosa will be actually constructing roads this summer on the land, and the first building, which is funded by a $5.4 million grant from the Economic Development Administration, will be opening next spring. So we'll have about 12 to 14 faculty co-locating out there with folks from the medical center about less than a year from now. And something new that we had gifted to us earlier this year, we have the Cousins Cudahy Research Center. Michael Cudahy gave UWM Foundation a gift, which is the former Marquette Electronics Research Facility in Milwaukee. It's located north of campus, to expand our research and outreach efforts. So we're pretty excited about that. And again, later this evening, I know you all have been invited to the dedication of our Joseph J. Zilber School of Public Health. For a preview for that, I'm going to bring forward our founding dean for that project, Magda Pecht. Now, Magda is a national leader in women's health issues, and she helped form the School of Public Health at the University of Nebraska, so she's got a lot of experience getting these programs up and running. And just to give you an idea about how accomplished Magda is, when I was in Washington, D.C. last October, after we had signed Magda on board, I was on Capitol Hill, and several staff members actually congratulated me on the hiring of Magda because she had been so important in writing much of the policy for the U.S. in areas related to public health. And one person described her as a national force in public health. And for any of you who have met her and have had time to spend time with her, she is a real fireball, and is going to be a driving force here in Milwaukee and in the States. So, Magda?
Thank you. Well, good morning. The Joseph J. Zilber School of Public Health that you made possible is on a mission. You see, our mission is to conduct rigorous public health research and scholarship, educate the current and future public health workforce, and influence the development of strategies and policies that are going to promote health among diverse populations. When I travel the nation, people say to me, "So what do you do?" I say, "I'm in public health." And then their eyes glaze and say, "What's that?" And as regents and as partners in this, we need to be able to say clearly what it is that we're investing in. Because this building is where it is going to happen. And the it is that we have the capacity to create the science and educate the folks and influence the policies so that people right here in Milwaukee, in southeastern Wisconsin, across the state, across the nation and the world can be healthy every day, everywhere, in every way, from generation to generation. And that means creating equal chances and fullest choices for living healthy, well, and long. Now, how are we going to do that with a building and the possibilities that can happen? We have a presence elsewhere on this campus, and you've already heard about the Kenwood IRC, where hopefully our wet labs will be for environmental health. Our partnership with Freshwater Science will be present in the building that's being built. We are present on campus and in the Northwest Quadrant. But to have a home where public health can happen is what is most remarkable about what's going to happen today as the beginning of the next generation of public health work in this nation. You've enabled us with this building to create a new generation school of public health. There are only 50 in the nation. one which is grounded in social and environmental justice. You've enabled us to recruit, co-locate, and support and sustain the absolute best and brightest who will come here to solve the most intractable and difficult public health issues facing us, a nation that is getting wider, where my children may not live as long as we do. We will foster innovations in inquiry and ask and answer these hard questions around chronic disease prevention, around genomics, around eliminating unconscionable health disparities. We will be a portal for the UW system in downtown Milwaukee. This is the first to go off of this campus. And in doing so, we become even better neighbors, not only in Milwaukee, but in Racine and Kenosha and across the state, so folks have a place to go to have not only a think tank, but a do tank. We will be the ones that translate what we learn into what we're going to do differently to get measurable results. We're going to create the healthiest place to go to work on this campus, and you'll see some of those designs that have been built in. We have created in the building a collaborating commons that brings people together, a touchdown center that allows people to work actually and virtually, and technology that connects us to the world in terms of communications. We are part of an economic driver for this newest neighborhood, which is LEED certified here in Milwaukee in the brewery. So we're telling you that we are here and on a mission. And you have given us the stimulus to make this mission possible. Join us this evening, take a tour, and come find out where we will incubate the best ideas that lead to results for the healthiest city, healthiest state in the nation. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Magda. And I think, as you pointed out, when you talk about your new building, which is going to be going on, places have no value without strong and relevant programs. And so as I move on to talk about our programs, I just want to talk about kind of our theory or how much we value being relevant. Because as a university, we want to ensure that we are adding value to the state of Wisconsin by providing a skilled workforce that will drive the economy for decades to come. Likewise, we want to prepare our students to always add value to society and give them the tools they need to easily find a job immediately when they graduate, but for years to come. For this reason, UW-M has focused on aligning and developing our new academic programs and realigning our existing programs with key stakeholders in the state, most of which are located right in our backyard. In this regard, we have worked very closely with a number of organizations, including We Energies, Rockwell, Harley-Davidson, Manpower, the Milwaukee Regional Medical Center, Kohl's, Aurora, and many others, to develop programs that are immediately adding value to the organizations we're trying to serve. Two of those partners have graciously stepped forward today to join us to talk about how we are working together and the impact that we're making as a campus on what they're trying to accomplish. Now, the first is Johnson Controls. Now, when I came to Milwaukee in 2008 from Pittsburgh, I'd been working very closely with the Department of Energy, and I knew how well-positioned Johnson Controls was to be an international leader in the energy field. So I met with them on my second day here on the job. I feel very lucky to have met Marian Wright, who is really a visionary leader that understands the value of a long-term partnership with a university such as UW-M. Johnson Controls is the world leader in lead-acid batteries, but Marianne wanted to ensure that JCI was the leader in lithium-ion batteries and whatever the next breakthrough technology would be, such as lithium air, for decades to come. We shared a common vision to make Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin an international leader in energy storage devices and batteries. And I believe over the last 4 years, we have developed what I call an ideal partnership with JCI, where both JCI and the UW system are getting a great competitive advantage. I call it ideal partnership from UW-M's perspective because we have 10 JCI scientists currently housed in our School of Engineering, working side by side with our researchers in labs that really provide key and vital collaborators for our faculty. JCI has also endowed the first UW system chair to bring an international leading researcher in battery technology that will help the state's research efforts really move forward. Our students are greatly benefiting by the partnership because it provides UW-M with unprecedented research and teaching facilities. For example, JCI, our engineering building, has put in a dry room, which is a state-of-the-art battery testing and prototyping facility. It is the only dry room at an academic institution in the country. Our students are getting trained in this lab, and our researchers are getting competitive advantage on federal grants because of the investment that JCI is making into UWM. And the JCI scientists who have adjunct appointments with our engineering school are providing mentorship and other teaching opportunities for our students to ensure that when they graduate, they have a skill set that puts them ahead of the field. So it's my great pleasure to introduce one of my favorite people in the world, Marianne Wright, to describe the partnership with JCI. So Marianne.
So good morning. I just told Mike I really don't think I need to talk because I think he described what we do. But I think it's important. Johnson Controls has had a long-standing relationship with the University of Wisconsin in Madison and in Milwaukee. But we now have a partnership because Mike Lovell came to UWM. And Mike said that we met on the second day that he was, when he came to UWM, and he's right. And that started our journey to bring our resources together to create an academic and industrial powerhouse to make Wisconsin a leader in research and development, talent development, and commercialization for the next generation of energy storage. And over the last 4 years, we've been building this partnership, and it includes both campuses, and we're very careful and thoughtful to make sure that we're bridging these campuses to take advantage of the resources and the capabilities to make us stronger here in Wisconsin. We did endow the Chair for Energy Storage Research and Development. We put the labs here on campus, and as Mike said, this dry room manufacturing lab is the only facility of its kind in the nation, which is going to help us to recruit world-leading chair for this position. We've made significant investments in research projects that are student and faculty-led, and we closely collaborate, my scientists, and Mike's right, they actually live here. They don't have housing any longer at Johnson Controls because they live here and they work side by side with the students and faculty. We've made a multi-million-dollar investment in this partnership, and the labs are part of that. That is in the engineering school. Mike? You've already said all this stuff, so I'm going to keep going here. That's okay. And the faculty, I think it's important to know, the faculty with whom my scientists work have Johnson Controls badges, and they have access to our facilities and our capabilities. They've been inside our plants. They come and work with us to troubleshoot, to take a look at how we do things in the corporate world, and take that back into the university to take the theoretical into a practical environment. And I also want to talk about, and also UWM is a partner on some of our Department of Energy Research and Development grants, which is really important to us as we establish a leadership position in the United States in advanced energy storage research and development. We also are in the final planning stages of our labs at UW-Madison, and it'll be housed in the new Wisconsin Energy Institute. And I really want to thank Dean Paul Piercy for his extraordinary leadership in helping to architect this relationship and the collaboration between Johnson Controls and UW-Madison and Milwaukee. The decision for us to endow the chair and build these labs at Milwaukee and Madison wasn't a gift. We really see this as an investment, and for those of you who know Mike, he continues to allow me to make investments in establishing a world-class talent pipeline and to build our reputation as technology leaders here in this region. But we also have the expectation that we're going to have significant technology breakthroughs because we really do believe that the great science, the great ideas, and the next good commercialization will come out of the university. And we've placed a lot of focus on this innovation and development of next generation energy storage solutions, but we also realize it's very important for us to make this investment to develop the next generation talent pipeline, and we're making these investments in our students. We established research fellowships at both UW-Milwaukee and Madison, and the rule there is if Madison gets a grant, they have to be collaborating with Milwaukee to really develop that collaboration. But what it does is it allows us as Johnson Controls to solve some of the big challenges around energy storage inside the academic institution and vet and develop the next generation of talent and the next generation of Johnson Controls employees. So this relationship is really an opportunity to collaborate with the academic institution and industry to help recruit the best students from around the world. We're building that talent pipeline through the endowed chair, and we're recruiting a world-class professor who will advance our important energy storage work, win external funding, and attract the best and the brightest students from around the world. Mike, Paul Piercy, and I are really committed to establishing a leading center of excellence for energy storage research and development. We're going to focus on discovery, development, and commercialization of advanced energy storage solutions. This is a very profound collaboration between Johnson Controls and the state's premier research universities, and it will drive critical innovation. When a leading company like Johnson Controls and the top educational institutions like UW-Madison and Milwaukee get together, only great things are going to happen. And I know you've seen several of the facilities here on campus, but just a block away are these two laboratories, and I want to give you a sneak peek so you can see all the great work that's going on inside of it. Thank you.
This is the Johnson Controls Dry Room Laboratory at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee's Engineering Building. It's a collaborative laboratory for prototyping advanced lithium-ion chemistry cells for automotive applications. And it really is something special in that it represents a unique technology processing capability, probably in North America, certainly in the United States, for dry lab assembly of advanced chemistry energy storage technology. In this lab, we can make cells in the capacity of 3 amp hour cell is in the size range of applications for things like hybrid electric vehicles. A 40 amp hour cell is in the size range of things like very large plug-in vehicle battery packs or full electric vehicles.
There's scientists from Johnson Controls working right alongside students at UW-Milwaukee. It's just an incredible opportunity because there's a certain skill set that's in industry that we don't necessarily have here. It only makes our work stronger. And so some of the work that I'm doing is looking to create new materials that can be used to push the envelope forward and expand the capability of energy storage so that it can go out into different areas.
I feel more prepared to move into industry after I finish my study. This kind of experience will make it easy for me to transit from academia.
On this floor, we are intensely focused on what are the best materials from the standpoint of the amount of energy you get out per unit weight, the amount of power you get out per unit weight, and what is the cost. The glove box, again, a rare piece of equipment at academic institutions. It's a large investment. It's a sealed glove box, pumped down and filled with argon. There's nothing else in this in terms of an atmosphere but argon. We are certain that there will be no contaminants or any unwanted chemical reactions. And we're not afraid to fail. The key thing is fail fast. Move quickly through the permutations, decide which materials are worthy of further investigation, and move on with life towards the ultimate goal, which is a product, a battery system that meets our customer needs. It gives us access to a lot of great intellectual capital, engineers, material engineers, other engineers that can give us perspective on things that if you're too close to the product, sometimes you miss opportunities. What we need are more modern day versions of the Manhattan Project model, where you get together the right skill sets in a very collaborative activity where management has the vision, everyone's committed, and you work towards a specific set of goals until you get it done.
I want to thank Mary Ann and Johnson Controls for their investment into UWM and the UW system, and we really enjoy working so closely together with you. Now, yesterday we broke ground and what I know will become the best freshwater research and educational facility in the world. And as Peter McAvoy stated, who was one of the speakers last night in his remarks, said the facility will be transformational for UWM, the city and the state. It will allow UWM to play a leading role in ensuring that Milwaukee, alongside with Singapore and Copenhagen, will be an international hub for freshwater science and technology. This new facility, along with the launching of the School of Freshwater Science, would not have taken place without a lot of partners. One of the strongest partners that we have is a collection of businesses and industry represented by the Milwaukee Water Council. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Dean Amhouse, the Executive Director of the Milwaukee Water Council, who has really been a driving force in our collaborative efforts to discuss the new facility and our partnership.
Thanks very much, Mike, and it's our pleasure to be able to work with Dean Garman. And I want to emphasize what Mike said about David. It's remarkable to be able to have somebody of that talent here in our region and really taking us on to a whole nother level globally. And we discovered about 6 years ago at this time that we had this unique economic opportunity that rested in something around water. We live here day in and day out, and how quickly we don't see what's right in front of our eyes, this big body of water that exists out there. And in fact, we lost touch with an industry that had grown over decades in time, the manufacturing, tanning, and in fact, something that we probably all enjoy, a little bit of the brewing industry. All of that industry grew over a period of time, and the supporting industries as well. One of the things that we discovered, though, 6 years ago, where was this little old tile, well, I shouldn't say little, old tile factory down on Greenfield Avenue that was a little bit of a challenge to get to, and then known as the Great Lakes Water Institute. And there for nearly 50 years, the scientists, the researchers, and staff had quietly and diligently done some remarkable work to grow to become the largest freshwater research facility in the Great Lakes. And when you combine the 150 businesses that exist in this region with the universities that are here, and I emphasize universities, we found that we had an important niche that separated us out from no one else in the United States that can touch what we have here in the region around water technology, and one of only of a handful literally across the entire world. We, with the Milwaukee Water Council, and truly the businesses that we represent, the organizations, realize that we cannot accomplish what we're trying to be able to do by ourselves. We need to be unified together. It is not one sector, it is multiple sectors. It is the private sector, it is the public sector, it's the academic sector, the NGO, all of us collectively working together. We often talk about our region as the next Silicon Valley of water. And when people talk about Silicon Valley, they think of, yes, the successful businesses and technology companies that are there. But what's often forgot is where the roots of that began, which was at Stanford University, and the talent and the ideas that are coming out of the university that then get applied into the private sector. We here in this region are very, very fortunate. We not only have University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee that we work with University of Wisconsin-Parkside, and one of my alma maters, University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. My other UW-Platteville, we'd love to have you join in as well. But I think what's interesting is that as we go forward in developing this cluster, and this is a very good thing, is that we forget who works for who. Because we're united in an effort to be building a region around water technology, and we have a unified purpose. So it doesn't matter whose name is on which card, we have a goal to move forward. And we're very pleased is that you helped us take another big step. Last night, we dedicated, or the groundbreaking for the School of Freshwater Sciences building. Just moments from that building, next month we will be starting the construction on the Water Accelerator Center. And you've supported that by providing a lease space for one floor for UWM to be there, so we can take the ideas that are on that floor, the innovations, and to move them down into the startup, the businesses, and the support that we're getting from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, and then to translate them and to move them and to grow them into businesses that, frankly, we want to kick out in the building and move across the street into the Reed Street Yards, which is now a water technology research park through the support of the City of Milwaukee. But we have much more to do, and there is a big future out there, and we look forward to working with the entire UW system in the areas of science and technology and engineering. It is something that from the Milwaukee Water Council, we believe that the only way we're going to be able to move forward in this is to have a united front. We have our sights on truly being a global leader. And I know working together with the system and with the universities here throughout the state, we will be able to accomplish that. So thank you very much for all of your support.
So we have a brief video kind of introducing the partnership and what's going on with the School of Freshwater Science.
Some people have said that water is the oil of the 21st century. It's a lot more fundamental than oil. We can do without oil. We can't do without water. Where we are really going to be is dramatic changes in weather, loss of existing water, changes in ecosystems, and things we are only just beginning to appreciate and understand. This means that water managers have got to find new science, new technology, and they've got to break the existing way of thinking. It has to change, and we have got to be providing those solutions. It's everything.
We're the only university in the world that holds a patent on the out-of-cycle spawning of North American yellow perch. These fish that are spawning in these off-cycle months like January and October, I don't even know what kind of dollar value you could put on something like that, because nothing like that is available anywhere else. Our focus recently has been on urban aquaculture. Perhaps one of the most important things is you're putting the product at the center of consumer demand. I think with growing power and with other entities like Sweetwater Organics, it gives us the opportunity to take our tools that we develop from our research and then test them at these commercial operations. We're here, we're committed, and we intend to work and do whatever we can to make Milwaukee the urban aquaculture city in America. We enjoy our fish fries, yes. Where else can you eat your research?
I do research on the impacts of emerging contaminants, so things like pharmaceuticals and personal care products and nanomaterials that migrate through the sewage treatment facilities or through leaky pipes from sewage and out into the aquatic environment. If we see some kind of effect of these chemicals on fish, chances are that it's probably having a very similar effect on humans. Our research will help inform what emerging contaminants will be the most important to pay attention to in the future, which ones need to be removed from our sewage treatment facilities or need to be considered when we consider regulation for pharmaceuticals or other types of chemicals we put into products. And we'll be able to do this at a faster rate than we've ever been able to do this before.
One of the things that has really impressed me about the direction that the School of Freshwater Science is taking is the decision to have a staff person who's going to be responsible for building the bridge between what happens in the lab and what happens in the real world. The choice to consciously bring information to the policy world, it's something that should be emulated by academic institutions around the region, and it can only result in good information getting to the right people so they can make decisions to protect the Great Lakes, and that's a great step.
What we've built here in Milwaukee is a magnet for other water technology companies, for researchers, for students who are interested in water technology, because here in Milwaukee, we not only have the 150 water technology companies, but the entire community has a mindset around building a water generation. The School of Freshwater Science provides more than anything else to this city a focus on water and the young talent, the creativity, the innovation, the entrepreneurship that's going to really drive this industry. And it's the School of Freshwater Science at UWM that's going to drive that focus.
The lake is one thing at the surface, but it's a whole different world under the water.
I get to be out on Lake Michigan. I get to learn about an environment that I'm really passionate about. I study freshwater ecosystem dynamics.
These are quagga mussels. We're looking at some large-scale bird die-offs in Lake Michigan from avian botulism poisoning. Being able to see what goes on under the lake and kind of watching changes take place over the last few years as we've been diving here is really amazing.
Diving, shallow. I think the Great Lakes provide a very unique environment that doesn't really compare to anywhere else in the world.
We're about to get a $53.6 million extension, state-of-the-art. We'll be integrating engineering, policy, science and art into that building. This is not only just research, this is a demonstration centre. I believe that the future of water lies in the hands of Milwaukee, and it can show everybody else in the world that this is the centre of excellence.
Certainly it's inspirational to watch the video and see what the impact can be. Now, we've talked a little bit about places and programs, but I think all of us recognize that these would not matter if we don't have the best people put in place. I've already introduced you two dynamic leaders who are really going to help move not only UWM, but the region, the state forward, and Magda Peck and David Garman. And we couldn't be more excited to have them here. We've also recently brought on board an athletic director, Andy Geiger. Now, those of you who do not know Andy, it's my great pleasure to be able to say that I can introduce a Hall of Fame performer as one of the members of our team. Andy is a member of the Athletic Directors Hall of Fame, and he's been a Division I athletic director for 35 years. He's been an athletic director at 5 different institutions, and most recently Stanford, Maryland, and Ohio State. And his sports teams over the years, particularly at Stanford, Ohio State, I think have won about 27 national championships. And I told Andy that I only expect him to win one here at UWM. But really, we're very pleased to have Andy. Andy, if you want to stand up and let us recognize you. Yeah. I believe Andy's been here for about 3 weeks, so he's still on the steep learning curve, but I know he'd enjoy meeting any of you who want to introduce yourselves to him. And our latest administrator is a new dean of our College of Engineering and Applied Science, Brett Peters. Now, Brett could not be here today, and that was because I believe he actually signed on at 10:30 last night. And I want to thank Provost Britz for his diligence in I told him I wanted to make the announcement at the Board of Regents meeting, and he really went to the 11th hour to get there, so I really appreciate that. Brett is just a fantastic leader. He comes to us from Texas A&M University, where he's been leading a top 10 industrial engineering program for more than a decade, and he really understands the value of collaboration and is really going to be forging ahead on the partnerships and the programs that we already have going here and in developing new ones. Now, getting back to the people, as my fellow chancellors will probably all attest to, all the campuses are facing significant climate and morale issues. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that many of the faculty and staff on our campus have had no pay increases over the last 6 years and are paying more from their benefits. And so obviously all the system and the campuses are working to try to address some of these issues in salary and compression. But one thing we wanted to do here at UWM is really focus on doing everything we could to make sure that people on our campus knew how much that we valued them. So last June, after I was named Chancellor in May, we held a campus retreat of all the leadership to discuss a new vision for UWM. And in the retreat, we developed a new vision statement. And we still emphasized our dual mission of research and access, that's critical to the future of our campus. But we also added a new component. We wanted to be the best place to learn and work. And this new emphasis really recognized that campus decisions need to support, protect, and enhance our greatest competitive asset. Now, the greatest competitive asset that we have as a campus are our faculty, staff, and students. And we will only be as good as they are. And so this led to what is known as the Best Place to Work initiative, which launched last year, last August. And we had several campus retreats to help us identify and prioritize a series of action-oriented climate initiatives. And over the last academic year, we've had about 80 faculty and staff from our campus volunteer to be part of this initiative and being part of the coordinating and action leadership team that have really put together and implemented a set of action items, many of which don't cost us anything, to make our campus a better place for the people that work here. And there are things that vary from leadership initiatives that focus on professional development and empower the leaders of UWM, help them address things like bullying and cyberbullying, and really develop professional leadership across campus. One thing academia is not good at is developing many of our employees. Department chairs don't necessarily always get trained in dealing with conflict. Also, career-led initiatives to foster meaningful career progression for people at UWM, and also doing things just to make the climate better around things like family-friendly workplaces and just the workplace in general. So some of those tricky items, focusing on things like parking, compliance systems, and other things that making sure the benefits and information are much easier to get. One thing that I'm really excited about is there's also a group looking at improving stress levels and mental health on campus. And one of the things that came out of this was what is known as the Claus versus Paws Challenge. And many of you know that I'm a runner. And this challenge is with Concordia University. And the Lakefront Marathon, which is in October, runs through Concordia University in our campus. And we have a friendly challenge with their campus. And I was very excited that we had about 140 faculty, staff, and students from our campus sign up for this challenge to run the marathon. And more than half of them had never run the marathon before. And I've gotten to know many new and interesting people. We have training that goes on 3 times a day from our Klachi Center. We run on the weekends. And it's just been a great way for the campus to merge together and promote a healthier environment and healthier workplace, and to really build some new bridges for many of us. And as one student recently sent an email to myself and Helene Hickson, who is the coordinator for the Paws vs. Claw Challenge for UWM, I said that this has really helped transform his life. You know, it's been something, being active and being healthy is something that has been missing, and not only has helped him improve his lifestyles, but also made him more motivated as a student. And really, it was a very powerful statement in how this is transforming the way he thinks and the way he lives his life. And we also have groups looking at awards and other ways to recognize some of the excellence that we have on our campus. And there's really just a tremendous amount of work that's been done by the people of our campus in terms of the Best Place to Work team. And outside in the hallways today, you'll see some posters, and we're going to have people from the Best Place to Work team manning the posters, talking about specifically the things that they're implementing to make this a better place to work and to learn. And I would like, actually, if anybody's here in the room now that's part of the team, would you please stand? I'd like to recognize you. Is anybody here from the Best Place to Work team? Yeah. And I really want to thank you for making such a difference at UWM and volunteering your time to this important initiative. And I just want to give an example of how that this is really already making a difference on our campus. During one of our end-of-year ceremonies for one of the schools and colleges where they had their graduation ceremony, I typically try to go to those and give an address and congratulate the students and their families. And as I was leaving one of them, I had somebody kind of chase me out of the room, which always makes you cringe because, oh, what's going to happen now? And the person actually came to me and had some tears in their eyes and wanted to thank me. And what she told me was that she had been in an environment where she'd been working on our campus where she had been being sexually and mentally harassed for a few years, and she hadn't done anything about it. And when we launched the Best Place to Work initiatives, she felt empowered to come forward because she knew that people were going to listen to her and make a difference in her lives. And her situation now is much better, and she's very thankful for that. And I want to really thank the people on the Best Place to Work initiative team for stepping forward and allowing people on our campus to feel like they can come forward and improve their work conditions. One of the great things about being chancellor is I get to see all of the great people and things that are going on across our campus. And these people are making such a great impact on the lives of others. And oftentimes we don't know about them. And I often describe these individuals as being part of the untold story that are on the UW system campuses. And so last January, I announced that I really wanted to try to highlight some of these outstanding individuals or groups. And so I started something called the Chancellor Spotlight on Excellence. And what we do is we tell the stories of the people that otherwise are not getting told, and we put them on our website, on my website, so that they live for long periods of time. So we're going to show just 2 of those videos to kind of show some of the people on our campus that are really making a huge impact in the lives of others. And the first is from one of our faculty members, Ann Bastings. Now, Ann is a really unique individual because she is a performing artist, but over her career, she realized that she really had an interest in doing research and trying to help people with dementia and Alzheimer's. And so she has transformed, actually created a whole new field of study based on merging the performing arts with helping those with dementia. And the video we're going to show you really highlights her work.
Hi, Paul. This is your first time. Hey, Pat. Are you going to be okay with everyone here?
Time Slips is really pretty simple. It's improvisational storytelling.
So we're going to write a story today. Are you up for it? Okay.
There is no set course for the story. It all comes from the participants themselves.
To start off, can you tell me what's going on in this picture?
They're hugging.
They're hugging.
It's a radical shift for people with memory loss because our first impulse is to actually go right to memory to try to heal the person.
Why do you think they're happy?
Because it's their wedding anniversary.
It's their wedding anniversary.
And this is particularly powerful for people whose ability to control language is fraying. So it's giving them back that tool to connect with people again.
He has decided that from now on, the next 50 years, I'm going to be the boss.
Okay. All right.
The first moment I realized that something was unique about this method, it was actually kind of a moment of desperation. I had been trying all these memory-based techniques, and they weren't working. And so I just tore a picture of the Marlboro Man out of a magazine, and I had a big sketch pad like this, and I said, say anything you want. Let's make up a story.
He thinks, underline, he thinks he's going to be the boss.
The second I figured out that that worked, that's all I did for the next 12 weeks. I just did the same thing over and over and over again just to see if I could recreate that. And in some ways, I'm doing that 12 years later. And in fact, it works every time, I'm here to say.
Ann is one of those creative visionaries. Sometimes Ann will come to me with an idea, and I have absolutely no idea what she's talking about. And just have gotten to the point of saying, fine, okay, because I know it's going to be great. I just know it's going to way
Sometimes
the
memory doesn't come as easily, right?
Yeah.
So you feel comfortable kind of sharing whichever way it comes out.
I mean, Ann is absolutely a star in this community, but she's also a star nationally and internationally.
You know the magic of it, that there's no planning.
No, I think it's her enthusiasm and her ideas and her belief that we should have high expectations of the imagination and the creative spirit of people with dementia. She's always pushing us in a good way to think bigger and to think something that can really revolutionize and reinvent long-term care.
It's not up to me.
No.
It's your story.
I think UWM, for me, the most important thing about working there is this feeling that you can make it happen. I have a career of working in the cracks of in between things, in between departments, in between disciplines, in between university community. And it's a really ripe community for making those kind of things happen, those kind of projects happen, those collaborations. And it's a place that has a need for it, too. So there's an enthusiasm for that kind of work and an acceptance for it and open doors, frankly.
So how are we going to end our story?
I think I love what I do because it allows you to tap almost immediately into the essence of humanity.
Bernie says, when does my control start? And Julianne says, that's what you think.
Sitting in on the story today, there's still moments of magic.
Hallelujah. Thank you, God.
Very nice. Good story. Good
And we wanted to show a second video because we just wanted to demonstrate that it's not just about the PhD scientists and the faculty we have working on campus that are doing great things and making a difference. We also have classified staff and custodians and people that are really going above and beyond the call of duty to make our campus a better place. So the second video is a gentleman, Cedric Humphrey, who is one of the custodial staff here at UWM.
Check the schedule. Okay, I'll be over. Always a morning person. This is when I'm most energetic, you know. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, per se.
When he starts at 6 o'clock, he just gets going and he goes till 2:30. He just makes a good role model for our department.
And maybe I'm walking 5 miles a day on a good day, maybe a little less on a rainy day, maybe a lot more on a busy day. But, hey, keeps me in good health. Yeah, I was in the service for 27 years in the Marine Corps. I was a Master Gunnery Sergeant. The rankings goes from E1 to E9, and that was the E9 up there, yeah. Okay, yeah. We did our own custodial work. It was nobody claimed for us. We all claimed our own areas. And so after I retired, I decided I was just going to stay home. Lasted maybe 4 months, and then I couldn't stay home, so I just took a job. I liked it, so I mean, I could clean. It's not a problem. As long as I can talk while I'm cleaning, I'm good. She's been sick for 3 days, so we need to come check on her.
I see Cedric's military background every day. His attitude, his personality, and just the way that he takes control of things, you know. So every day you see it.
Our secret is out. To begin with, he was a custodian. Then he was my fellow custodial supervisor. Now he's my boss. I really like having him as my boss. I find a lot of people on campus just generally not only know him, but they like him. Everywhere you go, hey Cedric, hey Cedric, hey Cedric.
Well, this is what I think. You got to be approachable, and you got to be able to approach people. I mean, if you want them to talk to you and tell you what the problem is, they got to be comfortable talking to you. So I talk to a lot of people. I think what we really need to look at is this is going to be the future. All these, I'm calling them kids, but they're young adults. But this is the future. I think they got a lot of potential, and we just need to bring it out of them. And I mean, if they see us working, I mean, it may not be the job they're thinking about, but everybody should do their best, whatever job they're doing. And if we show them that, I think they understand that.
I think the custodial staff, people like Cedric, provide service, and in providing service, they also provide a degree of leadership. And that kind of leadership is so integral to having a quality of life at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. It really can't be underestimated. He's a great person.
UWM have some real good aspirations to be better and be a great university, and I kind of like going along with the ride. I mean, that's what it's about, higher aspirations, and I think they got that. So that's what I like. We're walking. We still got walking to do.
Well, that concludes the formal portion of our presentation, and I just want to send just a reminder to everyone that the Zubel School of Public Health Education today starts at 5, and there'll be buses leaving at 4:30 down at the front entrance to the Union for those of you that will be shuttling over. And what I would like to do now is invite anyone to ask, particularly the Regents, to ask questions about anything we presented today or anything. And I think Marianne Wright, unfortunately, just had to leave. She had another equipment at 9:30, but we'll do our best to answer any questions maybe addressed to her.
Questions, comments? Well, thank you, Chancellor Lovell, and thank you to all of you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I remember when
Tom Barrett came before the Regents about the University of Wisconsin-Madison's, the decision the Regents made about the School of Public Health. Could you just explain to us a little bit about how they complement each other and how they're different also?
I think I'll pull up our expert, Magda, to answer that one.
I'm so pleased you asked that question. Thank you. Before I accepted this position, I spent time with Dean Robert Golden to talk through what it would look like for us to be complementary. In addition, I spoke with Gary Gilmore in La Crosse, and I spoke with folks at MCW. This is an extraordinary state that already has many assets in education and in research, practice and policy, and public health. What we agreed is that there is an alternative model that is developing here in the Milwaukee system component. I come from an academic health science center at the University of Nebraska, where I have been for over 20 years and built a school of public health there. And I believe that schools of public health that reach, schools of medicine that reach out to public health are extraordinary institutions. And we have forward thinking going on here in Madison, unlike most other places in the nation. In addition to one which is predominantly a medical model that extends to public health, what we agreed is that the model in Milwaukee, as a next generation school of public health, will focus beyond medical care and beyond primary care to the other determinants of health. That's the strength of this campus. So our partnership here is going to be working with the School of Library and Information Science so that we can have librarians and public health people trained together, because that's where homeless are showing up on our doors. It's a partnership together with the School for the Arts so that storytelling that you just saw can couple with storytelling as the essential narrative, as a skill of leadership in public health. We're partnering with the business school. We are partnering with the School of Engineering. We're partnering clearly with freshwater science, as well as with our core College of Nursing and College of Health Sciences. What we're trying to do here is look at the determinants of health that go beyond medical care. And what we agreed in the complementary nature between the Madison model and the Milwaukee model is that we as a school of public health can go more broadly. And we can complement those two by finding stronger solutions that come out of Wisconsin. We will not compete. We will leverage resources. We are already meeting on a regular basis. And we can do what has not been done anywhere else in any other state in the nation.
Just a comment. Mayor Barrett was very persuasive and talked about an urban problem when he came to us and asked us not to approve the School of Public Health. Now, this board, contrary to even the wishes of the governor and some very, urban Milwaukee voices, we went ahead and did it. And it's really good to hear that it isn't competitive. And I'm certainly aware of their other roles and also your role in more urban problems. But I think it's a great example of the Board of Regents and the University of Wisconsin-Madison, as well as the Joe Zilbers of the world stepping up for a problem and moving forward together. It's a compliment to everyone.
And let me just thank you again to the Board of Regents for, I'm late to this party in terms of the conversations that happened with both Joe Zilber and Mayor Barrett. Having just been the keynoter yesterday at the 3rd Infant Mortality Summit here in Milwaukee, where babies are dying at an unconscionable rate, and it's not an exclusive urban problem, but it's disproportionately an urban issue. Hearing Mayor Barrett come the day after the election and continue to commit to public health and to see how we can make solutions happen in this city that are transferable to other cities in smaller, but in Wisconsin as well. I have called Milwaukee, and the reason I came here, that this is the sentinel city in America. I've worked in urban health for 25 years. And if we in this university can transform the health of babies and women and families and fathers here in Milwaukee, it'll happen elsewhere in the nation and elsewhere in the world. And we'll learn from each other across different campuses in the system. So thank you for your support.
Anybody else? Mark.
Mike, when we come here, we hear about the cutting-edge work that is being done with the School of Freshwater Sciences. We were at UW Superior couple of months ago, and we heard about the cutting-edge work that is being done there in the Great Lakes. We go to UW-Stevens Point, and we hear about the cutting-edge work that's being done in groundwater. Is there any effort to tie these things together, and where is that effort coming from? And are there collaborations among these great scientists so that people aren't falling all over each other pursuing water?
Yes, there are. And I don't want to steal Kevin's thunder, but he's going to be making an announcement about this specifically next week. This is something, water is something that we found that is important, and great work is going on in all the system campuses, and we are going to be working to better coordinate those efforts.
Perfect. Thanks.
Chuck.
I think it's a wonderful presentation, Mike, and I just wanted to say this is about people and it is about leadership, and it all starts at the top. And I think I just wanted to note that one more person could have had a video all to his own, and that's Chancellor Michael Lovell. And we really appreciate your leadership and your role in pulling this all together. Thank you.
John?
This presentation really gives me hope for the future of this region and this state. I mean, all the initiatives that were presented today, the School of Freshwater Sciences, the School of Public Health, which is going to address pressing health problems in this community, the partnership with JCI, I just find that to be just tremendous model for what we need to be doing, not only the research but the potential for manufacturing jobs in this community that could come out of that. And I think once again it proves the value of the state's investment in public education because it is such an economic driver for the region and the state. So thanks, Mike. Great presentation.
Jose.
I'm like all of the other regions, would also like to compliment you on the presentation, and I'm extremely proud being a citizen here in the Milwaukee metro area that UW-Milwaukee is finally not simply an afterthought in what has been happening, which was the case for a very long time. But I think we also have to remind ourselves that at the end of the day, universities are about students. It's not just about all these wonderful colleges and programs and initiatives. And being in the largest urban center and recognizing that we have many educational problems and even preparing enough students to graduate from high school and hopefully even go on to university education, I would hope that we don't forget at the end of the day it's not just about all these wonderful programs and initiatives, but those programs are going to need students. And underlying that, especially in the Milwaukee metro area, is we definitely need a broad spectrum of the student population. And I am talking about diversity, and I am talking about gender equity, that we need to be very conscientious about that also.
Sure. In an hour, we're going to talk about all the initiatives on campus. And one of the major initiatives that we have now is called R-Cubed, which is recruitment, retention, and remediation, specifically to address the issues that you've brought up, because we know that our role, particularly as the access institution in the urban setting, is to ensure that we are producing graduates, many of which are unprepared when we get them, to make sure that they're so successful when they get to our doors.
Else? Well, thank you again, Chancellor Lovell, all the presenters. Wonderful presentation.
And I just want to just give one heads up. I know Chuck complimented me, but there's always the wizard behind the screen that makes all of us look good and work tirelessly, and that's Brad Stratton, who's over here. And today happens to be Brad's birthday, and I know that we kept him up really late last night, so. So thank you.
Thanks. We'll move on to start talking about our three budget items this morning, two of which require action by the board. We'll begin with the annual fiscal year 2013 operating budget. While much of our attention today will focus on setting tuition for the coming year, there are many other moving parts to the budget that we should understand and will be discussing. Secondly, the board will take up an informational discussion about the coming 13-15 budget cycle, setting the stage for action on the board's official request in August. Finally, we'll vote on an official recommendation from this board to the Higher Educational Aids Board HEAB about how much funding that agency should request in the 2013-15 biennium for the Wisconsin Higher Education Grant. Again, we begin with the proposed annual budget for the fiscal year that begins in less than 1 month. Looking at the bigger picture, we'll consider not only the price students pay, but also the aid they receive to reduce that cost. Furthermore, we should consider the value students derive from a high-quality college experience and whether our colleges and universities have the resources they need to deliver the first-class education that prepares students for success in work and in life. We must also keep in mind the broader benefits that all Wisconsin derives from having an educated workforce and citizenry. We want to ensure that the UW system institutions retain a robust capacity to serve as an economic engines for the state. Finally, in light of all the flexibilities that have been now granted to the UW system, we must examine the annual budget to ensure that we are pursuing every opportunity to use the new authority to stretch dollars further and serve students better. Kevin?
Thank you, Regent Smith. And let me start by adding my congratulations to the one that Regent Smith already expressed to Governor Walker and his team for their election victory earlier this week, and say that I look forward to working with him and his administration to make the university an even more powerful force for good in the state of Wisconsin and the nation and the world. With that, I'd like to revisit a couple of the key points from our February board meeting, the presentation on cost containment particularly, and the long-term financial trends that lead us to today's vote on the FY13 operating budget. You may recall Senior Vice President Nook's presentation at the February meeting showing how the money we spend per student, including both GPR and tuition, has grown more slowly than peer universities and colleges. As a matter of fact, UW's revenue per student tracks more closely to the inflationary increases that families typically experience with such items as groceries and clothing and housing. If you split our two revenue streams, state support has actually fallen relative to inflation, forcing tuition to rise at a rate much higher than the consumer price index that covers those kinds of items. Again, this is a long-term historical view based upon 3 decades worth of funding trends, but that historical view is critical, I think, as we consider the fiscal year that begins shortly. I wanted to remind you that as we discussed the terms of the budget at the beginning of this biennium, the 2011-13 biennium, as we discussed the budget with the governor, with the legislature, we came to what I'll describe as a mutual expectation of a 5.5% increase in each year of the biennium. The Regents have the authority and the responsibility to approve a tuition rate now for the coming year, but the state's budget and ours have been built with the 5.5% included. In this context, the state of Wisconsin's 2011-13 biennial budget reduced funding to the UW system by $250 million in the midst of a very tough national recession. A required budget lapse approved by the Joint Finance Committee in February of 2012 withdrew an additional $46 million on top of that $250, and then with an additional $20 million to be returned to state coffers in fiscal year 13, or the coming fiscal year. In addition to those reductions in operating revenues, all UW employees are paying for a larger portion of their health and retirement benefits. These are challenging times for our colleges and universities, as well as for our students and families. With that in mind, we are recommending a modest, predictable tuition increase that provides a partial restoration of funding for our campuses. If this board approves the 5.5% increase we've recommended, this funding will help more students get the classes they need to graduate on time in a safe, productive learning environment. Through this balanced approach, we can maintain UW's historic commitments to affordability and academic excellence. Wisconsin is not the only state where universities must tighten their belts to deal with state budget cuts. I think we all recognize that. We here in Wisconsin, I'm glad to say, have successfully avoided the kinds of double-digit tuition increases that would place a heavier burden on our students and families. Consider this. Last year, when we were raising tuition by 5.5%, the University of New Hampshire hiked its tuition by 11.5%. The California state universities raised their tuitions by an average of 25%. The University of Georgia and the University of Washington both upped tuitions by 16%. Our recommended 5.5% increase this year, combined with last year's at the same percentage, would result in a total of $110 million in tuition revenue to partially offset the budget cuts and lapses. I want to emphasize strongly again that this $110 million would offset only about a third of the cuts we have taken in this biennium. So we are shielding students and families from having to shoulder much larger cuts to fill in the budget hole created by the withdrawal of state funding. As our entire state continues to feel the ripple effects of an historic economic downturn, UW chancellors continue to make tough choices to find ever greater efficiencies, while also focusing on educational programs and research efforts that will fuel economic recovery. The institutions, at my request, have now produced 661 templates for four-year degree majors and minors. These are roadmaps for students to be able to plan completion of their degrees within 4 years, saving the cost of extra semesters, years of tuition if they stay for a fifth year or sixth year. We're trying to do more and more of that, working in advance with students and families as they plan their education, and it's a trade-off. We need to have enough revenue to be able to provide the courses in those four-year templates for the students to take them, and if they wish, graduate in 4 years and save the $15,000 that it will cost them to go for a fifth year. So if you accept our recommended budget this year, resident undergraduates at our baccalaureate granting universities would see their tuition bills increase by an average, this is a system-wide average, of $396 for the year, or $198 per semester. At UW-Madison, tuition would rise by a total of $681 for the coming academic year. That includes a general tuition increase of $431 plus the $250 differential tuition increase for the Madison Initiative for undergraduates. Fees at Madison would increase by $32. Here at UW-Milwaukee, tuition would increase by $422 annually, and fees would increase by $84. At our 11 comprehensive UW campuses, tuition would increase by an average of $368 per year, which includes the base increase and previously approved differentials. Fees would increase by an average of $30. In each of these cases, in every one of these cases, the new UW tuition and fees would be below the midpoint of their respective peer institutions. Let me repeat that. In each of these cases, after the increases we're recommending, the new UW tuition and fees would be below the midpoint of their respective peer groups. Most of those peers have not yet established new tuition rates for fall 2012. I think, though, it's probably safe to assume that when most of them do that, their tuition rates for the coming academic year will not go down. As it currently stands, if you accept our recommended budget for fall 2012, UW-Madison's recommended tuition rate plus fees after the recommended increase would be at least $649 below the midpoint of its peer group. That's UW-Madison. UW-Milwaukee's recommended tuition and fees would be at least $512 below the midpoint for its peers. And the recommended tuition and fees at our comprehensive campuses would be at least $970 below the midpoint for their peers after the tuition increase that's being recommended. Meanwhile, students at our 13 freshman sophomore UW colleges would see a $247 tuition increase and would remain after that competitively priced relative to the tuition rates for liberal arts transfer programs at Wisconsin technical colleges. Remember, up until last year, tuition was frozen at the UW colleges, the two-year campuses, for 4 straight years, from 07-08 to 10-11, and then increased by 5.5% at the two-year campuses for 2011-12. Tuition for non-resident undergraduates and tuition for resident graduate students would increase by the same dollar amount as resident undergraduate students, which is consistent with previous actions by this board. Some of you may recall the presentation by Professor Sandy Baum back in February of 2011, where she talked about the net cost of college, or the cost of college after you factor in student aid in the form of grants, scholarships, and tax benefits. These aids reduce the net cost, or the real cost, of college. More than 70% of all UW system undergraduate students receive some form of financial aid, and almost two-thirds of those receive at least one outright grant or scholarship. With this context, I want to turn the floor over for a few minutes to Associate Vice President Frida Harris to highlight some of the other major components of the proposed annual budget, and then we'll pause and open up the floor for questions and comments from the board. Frida.
Thank you, President Raleigh. Good morning, board members. The 2012-13 annual budget is developed using the biennial budget as its base. And in this case, the base is the 2011-13 biennial budget, which is fondly known as Act 32. The university's funding is contained in Chapter 20 of that budget. For this biennium, for this year actually, funding would increase for the system by $312 million. That is composed of an increase of $133 million of state funding, GPR, and it will provide 19% of the university's budget. Tuition revenues would increase $68 million and provide 21% of the budget, and other funds would increase $110 million and provide 59% of the budget. And when we take a look at the GPR and tuition changes that we have, you'll see that, again, as I said, GPR has increased in this budget $133 million. Now, that primarily consists of $106 million of new funding for debt service. What you see on the schedule here is that $106 million follows a decrease of $41 million last year. The funding is increasing primarily due to debt restructuring that reduced our costs in the prior year and have increased it going forward. We also see an additional $18 million of utilities funding. That also is a change that follows a decrease in funding for utilities in the prior year of about $10 million. Self-supporting operations are going to increase $27.6 million, and self-supporting operations include things like our differential tuition programs that have been supported by our students and approved by the board in prior years. It includes funding for online programming and also for service-based pricing programs that provide additional services to students who participate in those programs. Beyond that, then, there is $34.5 million of new resources that will be used to help restore the base funding for our institutions and help maintain the quality of education that we provide to our students at the colleges, universities, and extension. Then beyond that, there is an additional $15.6 million of funding for health insurance changes. President Riley has already talked to you about the tuition increases that we're proposing at our institutions. So we wanted to point out a couple of things to you related to the segregated fees at our institutions. Segregated fees provide funding for programs and services such as health centers, recreational, sports activities, transportation, athletics, students' organizations, unions, and child care centers. These funds support student life on campus, and each campus makes choices on the types of services and the amount of the fees that are charged for those services. Segregated fees are proposed to increase from a range of a negative $4 to $84. And the major reasons for those changes are funding for major programs and student-approved facility enhancements, student-initiated programming, and increases in costs of supplies. At our two-year institutions, the average segregated fee is going to increase $8. For room and board, increases that are being proposed range from $70 to $412, and they average $231 on all of our campuses, the four-year institutions. And the major reasons that are proposed for those rate changes are new and renovated residence halls, facility maintenance projects, adjustments to meal plans, and adding to services and hours. So that basically is providing some additional background information related to the annual budget. Do you have any questions about this or any of the materials that we sent out to you?
Jerry.
I have significant concern about the size of this hike. I've been personally pondering whether I might make the intervention that I'm going to propose since we were together in Superior. This issue before us has been a headline in Wisconsin's largest newspaper in 2 of the 3 last days, suggesting its importance, its relevance for Wisconsin and for all of our state in terms of public policy issues this week. We are proposing to take the 6th consecutive 5.5% hike over a period of time that the nation has gone through, as our state has gone through. The second largest economic distress in the nation's history. One of the staff members is quoted in the Milwaukee paper this morning arguing that many families can afford to pay more. That's true. I drove down yesterday from Wausau. We're in Broco. The principal employer is gone. 500 families that had a job in January are gone in terms of employment in February. Unless spouses have health care coverage elsewhere, I suspect they're in COLA in terms of health care protection and probably lack dental insurance. Where does the money come from for the dentist? Never mind this hike. I looked at per capita personal income in Wisconsin. Not in the last year, not in the last 2 years, but in the last 3 years. That's all families. That's not many families. That's real dollars in Wisconsin neighborhoods superior to Milwaukee. 2008 to 2011, per capita personal income in Wisconsin is up 5%. Over those 3 years, we've already taken tuition up 16.5%, and now we propose to take it up even more. We know that our system-wide tuition is light, and working on this is entirely appropriate. But our economic circumstance is not business as usual. 1-year, 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year, and now, again, a 6th year. I think the bite is too great. Madison, incoming freshman from Wisconsin, $681 increase. That's what we're being asked to do. If, according to the staff report, on 8 sister peer campuses, are they doing $681? No, they're not. Average income increase across the other 8, $343. Half what we're proposing to do this year. I propose that we take a 4% increase. For each point that we do, it's a $7 million impact. If we go from 5.5 to 4, we lighten the load for students and their families by $10 million. We heard from Ms. Harris, we are going to spend $312 million more in this budget. I'm suggesting spending 10 less. Where's this money going to come from? That's hard. That's the other side. The other thing I saw in the morning paper from Milwaukee was the observation of one of our best friends in the state legislature. What did Senator Harsdorf say yesterday on the subject of our operations? She said we have a long way to go to do things better and more efficient. Is it completely right what she says? Maybe not. Is it completely wrong what she says? Probably not. My motion would amend this year's operating budget to take the increase to 4%, giving President Riley and his staff discretion to implement it accordingly, making appropriate modifications that our president might think appropriate. So I make that motion.
There's no motion on the floor right now. The motion on the Resolution 2 is not on the floor as yet. It would probably be appropriate, because you'll be asked, if there is a motion to approve Resolution 2, yours would be an amendment, I think. Can we wait for that?
That's fine.
Oh, good, okay. Further, before somebody could make the motion, or if there's further discussion, comments for Frida, wherever people would want to go at this point in time. Regent Drew.
Question. I had the same question last year on the non-resident undergraduate tuition rates. The proposal is to increase them by the same dollar amount as the resident tuition increases, which comes out to a much lower percentage increase on non-resident undergraduate students. I question the wisdom of that in terms of a lower increase for non-residents versus residents. And I guess what I would ask is there data to support that as somehow being a revenue positive idea? I don't see it. The only explanation was that was our past Regent actions. So I question that, and I question the fairness to Wisconsin residents of taking really a bigger percentage hit in the increase than non-residents. So is there data to support that proposition?
Yeah, let me address that, Regent Joe. There's more than data, there's hard experience. What happened a number of years ago is that for a variety of reasons we were pushed to raise the out-of-state tuition for undergraduates to a point where we priced ourselves out of the market. And in that year, we lost $13 million in revenue from out-of-state students. The out-of-state students already pay 3 times or so as much as resident undergraduates. This board took the hard decision after that experience to actually lower the out-of-state rate so we could get back into the market. That $13 million is important, and as I think most of you know, for every out-of-state student we can attract, we can help fund another resident student. So it's important that we make the right market choice here to keep additional revenue coming in from those out-of-state sources.
Kevin, I believe John Wiley was Chancellor at the time. Do you remember what happened right after we reduced the out-of-state tuition? Was there a direct impact? More students came?
Well, I know he didn't lose $13 million. Maybe Frida remembers the exact number. I don't.
Within a couple of years of making that change, we had reversed the enrollment trend. We had lost over 900 non-resident students, and we were able to get those students back coming to Wisconsin institutions and restore the revenue streams at our institutions. So we have some information, and I can get that information for you, but we've continued to see some pretty steady non-res enrollment growth.
And was that throughout the system or just in Madison?
That was throughout the system. With Madison, we never did a rollback on the tuition for non-resident students. Their non-resident tuition stayed the same, and they have continued to have steady non-resident enrollment. For Madison, as you're aware, I think an issue that they have to deal with is the board cap on the percent of non-res.
But I guess my question was, as I recall it, it was impacting the comprehensives more. And there was a direct loss when we were forced to raise that tuition. And then when we lowered it, the numbers now show that we're back in the market.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. Regent Higgins.
I'd like to know, one of the primary concerns I have is the fact that our faculty hasn't seen raises for quite some time. And I just want to know how this trade-off, how this budget addresses that, if at all, realizing that some of the human resource efficiencies that we were granted in the budget repair bill have not kicked in, but is there any effort here to address that?
There are no salary increases included for faculty and staff in this budget. The money that increases in the budget, again, primarily when you look at it, $106 million of the increase that we have is for debt service. Another $18 million is for utilities and health care. The thing that is going to impact our institutions is the $34 million from the tuition revenue that will allow our campuses to continue to have the faculty and staff to support quality education, but not to provide an additional salary increase for them. It's very essential, actually, for our institutions.
Follow-up? Sure.
I'm sorry.
No.
Ms. Harris knows that, she spent a lot of time with me going through this wonderful process of briefing on the budget, so I'm sorry I was a lousy student. But would you explain the source of our debt service and the reason for increase that we need to address in this next year-long budget?
Right. The state provides the debt service funds. What we've actually seen is that we had $150 million plus of debt service in our 2010-11 budget, but because of restructuring that was done where they went out and refinanced at a lower rate, we were able to see a big decrease in the funding that was provided for debt last year, where you really weren't paying off any of the principal or any of those things. So for this year, what you're seeing is not only the restoration of the debt that you would normally have seen within a year, but you're also seeing new debt that is associated with new projects that have been brought online in the last 2 years.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ms. Harris, I just want to make sure that when we're talking about debt, basically we're talking about bonding for capital projects?
That's correct.
So the
it is.
buildings we're building and the things we're buying and stuff like that that's what we're paying for with our debt service?
That is being paid for. There is also some funding for all agency projects at our institutions that will help with the projects or buildings we already have on campus.
Okay. And then I'll shut up, I promise, at least for a minute. As we look to our next biennium, where we're going to have flexibilities and the block grants aren't going to be so restrictive and all this other kind of stuff, there will be a direct trade-off, in a sense, between the buildings we build and the money we have to raise faculty salaries or offset tuition increases, or is that not the case?
That's generally not the case. They generally look at those funds as different funds. There is the debt service, which looks at basically generally using a percentage of funds, and David Miller can certainly help out with this if I'm mangling anything on this side. And then there's the operating budget, which is sort of handled on a different side. The other thing is that when we look at the block grant, debt service is not included in the other GPR block. We can't mix and mingle the debt funds with the operating funds. So that $106 million increase we got for debt cannot be used for anything else. That money will have to go back to the state if we use anything less. And it's basically, we're told what we have to pay. The money is put there, and then we pay it for that, and anything else goes back to the state. Does that address your question?
Yes, but what I'm also hearing is, in the relatively limited context of of the university's budget as granted in the governor's overall budget, we can't mix and match those funds. Efficiencies in debt service won't translate into more money in non-debt service stuff. However, when the governor and the legislature decide how much money total they're going to give to the UW, that will be a kind of a consideration on their part.
They treat them very separately. So when they're looking at it, they have a capital process which operates totally differently from the operating budget process. And so they really don't consider what we do on this side makes a difference on that side. Again, David, is there anything you want to add to that? Okay. I guess I didn't mangle it too badly.
No, that's great. Or he just is quiet this morning. Regent Bartel.
Thank you. Regent Whitburn made a very reasoned and passionate advocacy for holding down tuition, and I've done the same thing, not as reasoned and passionate, but in the past, and I do still believe that we, as stewards of these institutions, we have a responsibility to keep affordability right at the top of our priority list. But Regent Whitburn mentioned the need, perhaps the need, to tighten our belts even further, quoting Senator Harsdorf. And I would like maybe President Riley to review with us some of the belt tightening that we've already done in the administrative area. How far can we go further in that area in saving money and avoiding tuition increases?
What I'd say is that the good work the chancellors have done at their institutions, and I'm going to ask a couple of them to address some of this in a minute, has led now to the situation where when we look at our peers, the average administrative overhead cost for peer systems is about 10.4%. That's the average of all the others. Ours is a little over 6%. So if you look at hard numbers comparing apples to apples on how we're doing in that regard, we have continued to do everything we can to keep those administrative costs as low as possible. Besides being president, I am the head of the system administration, and I'll remind folks that we took a 25% cut to system administration in our budget, the central office, and 50 positions, a quarter of our positions. That's emblematic of the kinds of things that have gone on the campuses. But I think since we are at Milwaukee, maybe I'll ask our home chancellor, Mike Lovell, to talk a little bit about what further cutbacks, further belt tightening would mean. I shared with all of you on this board a couple of weeks ago a very, I thought, disturbing letter from a student at UW-Stevens Point who was trying to finish her degree, who could not get the courses she needed, partly because the campus was not able to hire adjunct instructors to come in and offer the coursework that students needed to break that bottleneck. And that was directly, that Chancellor Patterson told us, due to the kind of cuts that had to be made in the budget for temporary instructors to do that. I think there could be similar stories at each of our campuses, and this is always a weighing process for us. How much more damage does the board want to do to the student experience beyond the damage that's already been done? Let me ask Chancellor Lovell to address some of the particular issues here at Milwaukee.
Well, I guess several issues have come up that I'd just like to address. And the first is the belt and tightening question. Now, in 2010, I know 2010 was well before we experienced the last set of cuts in the budget. The Goldwater Institute did a report on bloat in higher education, and it looked at in our case, 198 research universities in the country, and compared them on their cost per student, their ratio of administrative staff to faculty, and the teaching staff to the number of students and administrative staff to students. And in that report, we were the 12th leanest out of the 198 universities quoted in the report. We had about 1/3 of the administrative staff per student, the national average. We had half the teaching staff per student, the national average. And our cost on our campus per student that we spend was 1/4 of the national average. So clearly, we were already very lean before we just went through this last set of cuts. And so I'm not sure, I think, I've testified before, we are already worried about degrading the quality of the experience for our students on our campus. When the campus has, for every one mental health professional on our campus, there are 3,500 students. Or in our College of Letters and Sciences, if you have an undeclared student, there is one advisor per 800 students. These are real impacts, and as we continue to cut, you're degrading those experiences. And when you take a look just at the current proposal that just came forward to reduce the tuition from 5.5% increase to 4% increase, what that would mean on our campus would mean we'd be able to offer 132 less sections of courses. And if you figure 20 students per section, that's about 2,600 students that are not going to get into courses that they need to graduate over a period of time. And so when I think about what we need to do as a campus to ensure that students are graduating in a timely manner, this is really going to hurt 2,500 or more students on our campus, their ability to get out in 4 or even 5 years. And every year that they're here longer, it's a significant increase. If their tuition is $8,000 a year, it can be really hurt them. So I just think that, I understand, we all want to keep tuition down. We all understand the need and what's going on with the state and their families. And I think that, in an ideal world, we would want this to not have any tuition increase at all. But the fact of the matter is that we based our budgets on our campuses on this 5% increase. Our enrollments that we accepted are based on this in the budget that we had go forward. It's very difficult to have the conversation now, but we've been expecting something, for the past year and a half to go backwards. And I think this conversation is a very good one. I think we should continue to have it. I think it would be a little bit easier to have going into the next biennial budget before we had made our plans on how we were going to do things on our campus this coming year.
Okay. Further comments at that? Regent Drew?
The tuition level is set based on maximum of 18 credits. Am I correct? Everywhere except Stout, where it's on a per credit basis. So students they're paying for up to 18 credits. What is the average number of credits that a full-time student takes? So sort of, are they getting their money's worth in a way is the question.
Let me ask our folks to do that. I don't know, Mark, if you have that data handy. May try to get it. I don't know that we have it right away, but we can certainly get it soon, I think, here. I want to emphasize that we do have a plateau system, so students can take additional credits for no extra cost if they choose to. And again, part of our work with the 661 four-year degree templates that I mentioned was to help encourage students to do that so that, again, they can use that savings that the plateau affords them and move along more quickly toward their degree so they don't have to stay additional semesters and pay the additional tuition for those semesters.
Okay, do we have any programs in place if students are unable to get the courses that they need to get to the 18 credits, or if just for other reasons, and a lot of our students work, aren't able to take the 18 credits, are there things in place, and I think there is something at Oshkosh where there is interim terms where students can pick up for no cost, pick up those credits. So is that something, because to me, it's a little bit it's a little misleading to say, well, you're paying for 18 credits if you can't get 18 credits. Either, you can't get the classes, or you just, students can't physically do that and maintain good grades. So do we have ways? And to me, that would be a way to, sort of mitigate some of the damage to
Well, I think
students.
you can always take the 18 credits. The question is, can you take the ones that you might need for your major? But there are some programs on the campuses. It's not a perfect cover throughout the system, but let me ask if any of our chancellors want to address some of the things they do. Joe?
They're paying for 12, and we're giving the other ones if they want them. Very few people, I don't have the numbers, but will take 18. We wish they would. The challenge is they sometimes take too few credits, and that's their choice to do that. And as has been said, there are a lot of different reasons for that. But I think the best way to think of it is you pay for 12 credits. If you want to take more, you can do that.
Regent Whitburn.
That's correct. The plateau is between 12 and 18 credits, so students pay per credit up to 12. And then anything between the 12 and 18, they're paying the same rate. But it encourages students then to take more credits so that they can complete their degree more quickly. Once they get beyond the 18 and start on the 19th credit, then they start to pay again on a per credit basis.
Regent Whitburn. Then Jose.
In response to Regent Bartel's question, President Riley mentioned this word damage. Damage that could or would result. I'd have us think about it in a slightly different way, in terms of priority setting, in terms of criticality, and also fully understanding that we simply cannot fund every good idea in a private sector entity, in a public sector entity, or a combination of both. We have massive institutional momentum. I want to pick on my discipline for just a second. I went to UW-Oshkosh. UW-Oshkosh used to be Oshkosh Teachers College. When I went there, it was Wisconsin State University Oshkosh. Now it's UW-Oshkosh. I'm a political scientist, undergraduate poli-sci, Oshkosh graduate, Madison Graduate School. Recently, as I was confirmed as a regent, resigned from the Board of Visitors, Political Science. Been going to meetings around the Board of Visitors for years in Madison. Letters in Science in Madison has 60% of all the undergraduates. Political Science is the biggest major of all. They have a major there. And at UWM. And at Oshkosh. We have 13 comprehensive universities. Can you take poli-sci and get a major in every single one of them? I didn't know the answer to that. I was thinking about that. Is it critical to have a poli-sci major on every single campus? I asked the question. I got the answer. The answer is it's everywhere except at Stout. 12 of the 13. I suppose in some cases it's been there forever. In others, maybe it's a recent addition. Can't spend money we don't have. Thank you.
Regent Vasquez.
I struggle at times, not at times, but every time that I've been at these meetings, at this time in particular, because there are many statements that are made that are all very true within certain contexts, and yet we try to make them apply in all instances. When I was asked to give the Regents' comment at the UW-Milwaukee campus graduation, I started with a thank you, and the thank you was to the students. And I would encourage our regents to thank our students even more often and more publicly. And I followed that thank you by saying you could have selected some other institution to go to, that just because we are the public university system, that's your only choice. You could have gone somewhere else, but you chose to come to a public institution, and I believe that they chose because we are a very good service that is valuable to them. And the underlying point of that, to me, is that we are in a competitive environment. Even as a public institution, we are competing for our customers. And I think that in this case, as I was thinking about that, I see two customers. One are the students, and another customer are future employers of our students. And the first customer is saying, are you really going to give me what I need to be prepared to enter the world of work and to be able to do that as quickly as possible? And I think the second customer is saying, and are you going to give me future employees that I may not necessarily have to spend a lot of time, effort, and money in either retraining or giving them the fundamentals that you should have gotten, that my employees should have gotten at your institution. So I think that's part of what makes me struggle with all of this discussion, that it's not as simple as just saying, well, we're a public institution, take it for granted that as such, tighten the belt and they will keep coming because they have no other choice. We're not the motor vehicle department that we can tell the motor vehicle department, we'll tighten your belt, and if your people looking for their license renewal have to wait a little bit longer, well, so be it. If their pictures are a little bit fuzzier because you're using old and antiquated cameras, so be it. The good thing, motor vehicle department, is they can't go anywhere else to get their motor license, right? They got to come to you. So they wait a little longer, and for some of us, a little fuzzier pictures are even better because they make us look better. For others, they may not be. I don't know how we as a public university can say, well, you know, go somewhere else if you don't like what we do. I'm not quite sure I'm very comfortable with that approach of tightening. So it's a struggle for me as I think about this, because one of the concerns that I have is I do recognize, and I think that's one of the, of having now been here, that we are conscientiously doing things to, in our own very judicious, conscientious way, tightening our belt. Through the Education Committee, we hear reports, and we see reports where programs are being suspended, where programs are being terminated. We will hear this afternoon about the array of programs and how do we ensure that we're not overly duplicative. So I think we're doing those things. But the concern that I caution us is that we need to understand that we are in a competitive environment. I understand I'm not obviously from the for-profit sector, but I understand that many times many businesses, even in the throes of economic down cycles and lots of fiscal issues, they will continue to invest in their equipment, invest in their personnel, even when everything is telling them cut back, cut back, cut back. They're saying, but if we do, there's going to be that threshold where if we keep doing that, long term, we're not going to be able to recover. And I hope that we don't reach that stage. I think that we do have to be fiscally responsible, but that we always have to keep an eye to the future. We're not a small proprietary college system that if we close the doors and move away, so be it. We're not allowed to create a University of Wisconsin system in Texas because you can do it cheaper in Texas. We have to do it here, folks. And I think, Regent, that you are absolutely right. We do have to look at things. And it's been said privately and publicly. Do we need all 13 campuses? I don't know. But I think maybe that is a long-term discussion that as Regents we need to be engaged in. So that's what runs through my mind at this time, which is we've got to be competitive. We've got 2 customers. The only product we yield in the bulk of our education are our students. And we owe it to those future employers that we get those students to them on a timely basis and that they are absolutely the best qualified. And the only way we can do that is with faculty, with academic staff, with support staff that are working hard to do that. So I'm probably not leading us to any great conclusion, but at least those are the struggles that go through my mind as I think about this budget.
Regina. I think it should be.
Good comments. One thing I would add to this is price is part of that equation, that competitive equation. And our role is a little bit different with respect to the privates in that our role is not only to get students to come to our campuses, but to afford students the opportunity who might not be able to go to any campuses at all, private, public, in-state, out-state. So those are considerations. There's one other consideration, and it's something that I'm real concerned about. We've used the word tightening. And when you tighten you can either tighten by eliminating fat, but there is some point when tightening starts eliminating muscle. And when it eliminates muscle, then it no longer is a tightening system. What it becomes is it's something destructive to the organism, to the institution, to the business. What Regent Whitburn is talking about is taking a look at the system as a whole, not in terms of tightening, but in terms of streamlining, in terms of allocation. There's a lot of different words. And I'm far too new to be to making any kind of representation. But this is some very important considerations that we need to be thinking about, not only now, but as we look forward. Because increasing the tuition every year within our state, increasing the tuition every year by a 5.5, or even as President Riley said, a double digit, is not something that is good for our state, our system, or our students.
Anticipating that there might be an amendment to the motion, or the resolution, does someone want to move the resolution so we can then still discuss it, but maybe get the resolution on the floor?
So moved.
There's a second. This is Resolution 2 to the 2012-13 operating budget. There's been a motion and a second. Is there any? Let me get perhaps Regent Whitford's amendment on the floor.
My amendment would provide that the UW's proposed operating budget be modified to provide for tuition and fee increases of 4%, and that President Riley and system staff shall have discretion to make appropriate modifications in the proposed budget to accomplish this. My motivation here is to give our staff flexibility so that the modified budget would not have to come back to the Regents for any final approval.
Is there a second for that? Tim, Regent Higgins, are you seconding?
Yes.
Okay. Second, okay. So the amendment is on the floor for discussion. Regent Walsh.
Has it been seconded?
Yes, Regent Higgins did.
I want to speak generally. I've been at this now for 10 years, and the simple fact is this is never, ever easy to raise tuition. And today isn't a whole lot different than it was 4 years ago. We have students that can't afford it. Remember, our goal is accessibility, making this institution accessible and of the highest quality. And we have a problem in this state and in this country. To me, the question is, what do you do? And I think we have before us a well thought out plan given the circumstances. Any business, when it has problems, has to make tough decisions. And the first thing you say is we've got to cut expenses. We've got to tighten up. Of course, that's a wise thing to do. And Jerry's suggestion puts the question on the table. But I think there are three facts that suggest that taking revenue away from this institution is a very bad decision. The first thing is to ask, what are the administrative expenses? Because that's always the easiest one to do. And for 10 years, we've looked at the data, and nobody has disputed it, that the University of Wisconsin system has one of the lowest expense ratios for administrative costs in the country. So we can't do anything there. The second one is the biggest expense is people. If we had been raising the wages of our faculty and staff at any reasonable amount for the last 10 years, I would say maybe this isn't a time to do it. But the fact is, they've taken it on the chin. And these are the people that ironically have increased the production of graduates by, I believe, we have 15,000 more students that we educate every day than 10 years ago. And we had a governor 10 years ago that cut us relatively the same amount. We had a $250 million cut. This isn't about politics, and we have governors that are making decisions in the best interest of the people, and they've made a decision to cut higher education. And guess what we've done? We've lived with it, and we've produced more. And so when you have low administrative expenses, you have basically no faculty and staff increases, and you produce more, I'm not sure that it's fair to arbitrarily say tighten it 1.5%. Rather, I think it's our responsibility, if you really are having trouble with it, is to go back and to the process that we followed, and that's one-on-one discussions and identify where we can cut more. Now, my world is more on the research side and something I care passionately about. The University of Wisconsin-Madison is always one of the top 3 in the country. Every once in a while it's number 1. We have $1 billion of merit-based research grants. That's not pork, that's not politics, it's merit-based research grants. It's part of the muscle that Regina's talking about. Don't take that muscle away, because it provides wonderful funds to do things to make us even stronger. I think it's a fair question, can we cut it? But I think we need more substantive discussion on where. Because given the 3 factors, the low administrative expense, the no faculty increases, and producing more graduates, I don't think we can cut. And I think it's a great burden. We have a great burden to come up with the facts that would say it shouldn't be 5.5%. So.
Regent Pruitt. Well, I'm in opposition to Regent Whitburn's amendment. I would love to vote for a 4% tuition increase. I would love to vote for a 0% tuition increase. I don't think anyone wants, particularly at this time, and no one relishes voting for anything that puts additional pressure on middle-class families and middle-class students, particularly at a time when we are hoping to attract more of them to come to the university as we try to increase the number of college graduates in the state. But we are also guardians of the quality of these universities and this university system. And I think the case has been very, very strongly and I think persuasively made by President Riley and his staff about the fact that this tuition increase at 5.5% will only make up for 1/3 of the cost of the cuts that were received on the campuses. And if you add the employee contribution of $50 million, which is factored, then we've only covered at best half of the reduction in state GPR support. And I think we at least need to acknowledge the fact that unless we are prepared to live with significant further decline in quality, and I am deeply concerned, I have enormous confidence in our chancellors and chancellor leadership and all the work that's going on in that campus, but I'm even concerned with this in terms of their ability to continue to educate our students at the highest quality possible, having to deal with the cuts that they're dealing with, assuming a 5.5% tuition increase. And unless we are going to ask them to go even further, and unless we're going to ask students to potentially live with even larger class sizes and even longer time to degree, I think a 5.5% increase is really the only, at least to me, only responsible alternative here going forward. Thank you.
Regent Bradley.
Kevin, unless you followed a process that was different from when I was more intimately involved in the process, I assume you didn't start out at 5.5% in the initial requests that you received from the institutions in what they felt were their basic needs in order to accomplish the goals that the Regents have set out. In other words, I think it's easy for people to think, they read a number, and let's say it's 5.5%, and they might assume that, well, there's the university, reaching for the max. And I'd like you to explain the process that you went through, rather than to get up to 5.5%, but to get down to 5.5%.
Well, I think you're right, Regent Bradley, that when I talk with my friends, the chancellors, they generally have lots of things they feel they need to do to maintain enhanced quality at their institutions that would require a higher than 5.5% tuition hike when you've taken a $250 million cut and $66 million more in lapses. We have some pretty tough discussions around the table about that on a regular basis, and when I received the award from the lacrosse students, and Joe was talking to them about that a couple months ago, he made the point that I'm often the one that's hawkish on tuition and dealing with Joe and some of the other chancellors. I appreciate exactly what they want to do. I wish we could do more of it. I wish we could avoid the kind of problem that Bernie Patterson's student wrote to him about. So absolutely, would we like to have more revenue? Yes. Are we painfully aware of the situation of many of our families around the state? Yes. If I were king for a day, we wouldn't have any tuition. The City College of New York for years and years had none. We are now in a situation where that is not the will of the electorate, and we need to live with that. But the electorate still thinks, and rightly so, that we, those of us who are leaders in the system, this board, have the responsibility to maintain the quality of what generations that have come before us have built in this system. And I'm very worried, as Regent Pruitt is, that even at 5.5%, it's going to be a mighty struggle to maintain the quality. And there are a couple kinds of quality you can think of in that regard. Although there would be no pay plan for faculty and staff in this budget, chancellors would have discretion, for instance, to make counteroffers for really good faculty who get higher offers at other places and might leave and not be in that classroom in front of our kids or in front of the lab. Another kind of quality that this will help fund is the quality of being able to hire enough adjunct instructors to help students get through their degrees when we do have a pinch and aren't able to hire full-time, long-term faculty at the rates we need to. So absolutely, I could go down that row, and I see Chancellor Wells wants to start me to do that, and they could all tell you what they really need. But let me look to Chancellor Wells, who has his hand up.
A couple of things before directly responding. I've been here 12 years, and at least 8 of those years we've had very significant cuts in our GPR funding, and the tuition increases just as they did this time. In no way backfill those cuts. To the question, though, it's interesting to me what we didn't talk about. Let me take you back to when we started and put the planning budget together. We knew we were going to have a $250 million cut. We talked all that through, what we needed, what was the best tuition to set it at, predictable, reasonable, and that was a 5.5% each of the 2 years. Okay? Now, admittedly, we always struggle with this question every year, as you all are doing now, and we do as well, to determine whether you're going to approve the actual planning assumption of another 5.5% increase in tuition. But let me remind all of us, about 3 months ago, after we were dealing with $250 million of cuts, we got another $65 million of cuts. That was after we had set it up this way, 5.5%. Now, it's interesting to me what we didn't say. Well, what we should, in Oshkosh, that's $12 million to start with, $3 million more. Supposedly, hopefully just temporary. So what we didn't talk about, we didn't go to Kevin and say, well, really, given that that happened to us in midstream, we should go back and have to increase the tuition 8, 9%, rather than 5.5%. We didn't go there. We said, no, we're just going to have to figure out how to get through with another $65 million of cuts. And the last point, all of us, Oshkosh included, over all this period of time, all of these cuts have been going on, not only increasing enrollment, but increases degree productivity by 23%. So, it's important to understand what we didn't do. It goes back to the question. 5.5% is the best that we can do to keep the quality there and make sure that we don't add expenses to these in terms of time to degree and so on. On our campus, our students don't like the fact that it's a 5.5% increase, but they accept it. Their concern is that it's not used to continue to backfill, large cuts in terms of state appropriation. And their concern, the pressure they keep on me, is to make sure that we prioritize the seats in classes so they can graduate. And that's what we've been doing on our campuses. So that's just another way of thinking about what we didn't do.
Chancellor Patterson.
President Riley has mentioned a couple of times the
bottleneck problem we're having on our campus, and the email I shared with him and something with the board. Let me just take that a little more detail for you. Last semester, our Chemistry 105 class was oversubscribed by 170%. Our Chemistry 106 classes were overprescribed by beyond capacity of 112%. And fall semester, our Chemistry 106 class was at 116%. This only considers those students who were actually got enrolled. It doesn't include those students who are waiting in the wings and didn't get in any of the chemistry classes. I think of this kind of like you and I do when we're standing at the gate at the airport and we hear that announcement, that dreaded announcement, this flight is oversold. Our classes are oversold, and our students are left standing there waiting for the next flight, sometimes 2 or 3 semesters before they can get the required courses that they need. We have a really serious situation on our campus. We can only deal with that by, I think, this 5.5% increase in request.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Regent Higgins.
Well, I was on board as a seconder for Regent Whitbourd's amendment, and I have to admit that generally I'm a fairly decisive individual, and I certainly don't want to complain about the process that the administration has offered for us to get up to speed. I have to compliment Ms. Harris and Michael Morgan on the time and effort they put with me going over the budget, and I have to blame myself for not grasping it in its fullness. And I don't know who said it, but the concept of the fact that you're going to be executed tomorrow really focuses the mind today. When the time comes to vote, and I have to think about affecting 182,000 students, or the families of 182,000 students of the UW system in a way that is certainly as important to them as this budget cut is to our chancellors and our faculty and our staff on campuses. I have to do a little soul searching and say, do I know enough to really answer the questions that are going to be put to me by my friends, family, nephews, nieces, and neighbors when I get back home about this. And I guess the one thing that has lacked in the process is the ability to bounce this back and forth and to get the wisdom that Regent Walsh can bring to the table, and Regent Pruitt, people who have been through this before and have had to make those tough decisions. So I think this discussion is extremely important part of the process, and I appreciate it being held at this point in time. One of the things that affected my decision happened at Regent Falbo's UW Restructuring Task Force meeting yesterday, and I think Regent Whitbourd referred to it because Representative Strachota and Representative Doyle and Senator Harnsdorf kind of disabused me of one of my fond assumptions. I hate that when that happens. When I said, we look at our peer institutions and, we're below the median, we're second to last in the Big Ten. And they said, yeah, Tim, but when we look at our per capita income, we're about the same place. And the affordability of this wonderful university is mitigated by the fact that we have not, as a state, progressed in terms of the amount of money that the people who have to pay that tuition have been able to pay. And so that just reinforces the concept of, all of a sudden we have to look at this in a new light, and that caused me some sleepless time, one night because of all that happened yesterday, so I'm tossing and turning about that. There's a lot of balancing that has to go on. And on one hand, I think about, the families of those students of our system. On the other hand, I think about the fact that our chancellors have done a fantastic job of maintaining quality and still dealing with a continued disinvestment in the university. We have to applaud them for that. I continue to think about our friends in the faculty. That's the real asset of our university, and that they have put up with year after year after year of no salary increase. And yet, I look at our growth agenda for Wisconsin and I say, how can we continue to tax our citizens of Wisconsin, whether they be taxed through as taxpayers or taxed as people who take advantage of state services? And so I'm wandering about on this because I'm still up in the air about it. And balancing is an important thing that we have to do, and having a discussion about balance is part of our responsibility. And I don't want to disregard the experience that those of you who have been through this before have. But as a choice that some of us have to make who are, and I hate to say this, who are newer than others of you, it's a discussion that we still have to internalize, and that's why I said that we should think about what Jerry has proposed and continue having that discussion for a little while longer so that we get some idea of what that balance would actually mean. So a 4% is just as arbitrary as 5.5%. We could use 50%, I'm sure, but that wouldn't really be worthwhile. And we were given 5.5% in the budget, but I guess arbitrary is arbitrary one way or the other. So that's where I am at it right now. I don't have a decision, but I certainly have a dilemma, and I appreciate the opportunity to listen to those of you who are wiser.
Thank you. Certainly, we've probably all seen a stream of emails and communication from students, and we're certainly sensitive to that. And I want to recognize that we read and take those comments seriously. At the same time, when we look at all of the cutting that has been done, and certainly in Mike Falbo's legislative task force, there has been recommendations that are formulating that identify even more areas. I think that it's clear that some of the flexibilities that have been afforded really haven't yielded the results because of other issues, and those things need to be grappled with and brought to the forefront. So is there a little additional fat on the bone? I think there probably is. But the fear is, when do we get in the muscle? And I don't want to be the one to vote to get into the muscle. I know that 5.5% is a lot of money, and I understand the challenges that students are going through. I think somehow we have to deal with WEG funding or education grants, but I'm not in support of doing anything less than the 5.5%, and I understand that's a cap that's been placed on us. So I'm supportive of the 5.5%. I think we have to maintain quality. There's an expectation by our citizens, by our students, that the quality that we provide is maintained. And I think we have to continue to look for that fat, but I think this is an inappropriate time to make further reductions.
Let me just go up this side. Anybody on this side? Regent Bartel and then Regent Menady.
I'm glad that Regent Tyler mentioned the communications that we get from students. I do want to emphasize, as he did, that we receive those, we listen to them, we consider them, we discuss them among ourselves. We talk to student regents about those communications. Those are very important to us. I'm also glad that Regent Whitburn put on the table here today the subject of delivery methods, because and course offerings, because there are things that might be done in those areas to reduce costs without getting to muscle. I had a discussion this last week with Chancellor Ward about some initiatives that he's looking at in delivery methods that will reduce bottleneck courses and provide more access to the popular courses that the students want to take. So I think that there are things that can be done in the area of reducing costs, but without reducing quality. But I don't, as Regent Tyler mentioned, I don't think this is the time for us to cut back on revenues. We've been doing that. We've been trying to balance the revenues and maintain quality the entire time that I've been on the board, and it's been very difficult every single time. So I don't favor reducing the tuition rate to 4%. I think we should stick with what has been anticipated by everyone, the chancellors, the students, and their families.
Make my way around the table. Regent Pointer.
I'd like to start off talking with Friedel and Michael Morgan. We were discussing the opportunity I have to not only deliberate and vote on this tuition raise, but also pay it. So when we talk about middle-class students who also are working, and for me who also serve on the Board of Regents, it's difficult. This financially will hurt, and it'll be hard. I guess for me, the reason that I'm comfortable voting for this 5.5% tuition increase is because I know how necessary it is. And because in conversations with President Riley and chancellors, I see that if we do anything less, this will cut into the muscle of the system and of the education that our students receive. So like I said, it's a really tough decision. For me personally, when I talk to students who I know, this will hurt. I guess for me, what can mitigate this is on the chancellors and on the campuses that we really work on time to degree, and that we can put plans into effect that really give our students 4 years and you're done. And like what President Riley had mentioned, the 661 templates for students to graduate and get a completion in 4 years, I really think that that's key here. And that we really work on our campuses to make sure that we have those programs and that we have those in place for students to make sure that if we do continue to raise tuition, like what seems to be the future with decreasing state support, we have to have revenue from somewhere. I really think that that is going to be essential moving forward. And I do appreciate Regent Whitburn's proposal of a lower tuition rate, because 5.5 is a lot. We talk about Madison. For me, it's going to be 681. Other campuses around 300. And I think it is important for us to look at other alternatives moving forward, that we don't continue to increase by 5.5. That if there is a way to look at lower tuition increases or none of them at all, that would be great. So, thank you.
Thank you. Regent Minideeds.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate everyone's comments, and obviously there's been a lot of thought, and there's a lot of anguish and a lot of soul-searching that goes on when we get to this part of our job. Regent Higgins, I don't know anything about budgets, and I've been through talks with everybody, and I understand part of it, and some of it I don't. I'm a trial lawyer who usually deals with people with injured necks. So what do? I have to trust, and I think we all do, the people at the system that put in hours and hours to provide us with this information, who will answer our questions whenever we have them, and who will explain it and take the time to explain it to someone like me who really has a hard time grasping some of this information. We have to trust our chancellors who are telling us that this is what they need in order to operate at a bare bones minimum. We have to trust our experienced regents, Walsh, Pruitt, and others who have been through this many, many times, and what they have to say and why they're saying it, and realize that they're doing this for the best betterment of the citizens and of the system that we're serving here. And finally, I have to trust what people tell me when they read in our small paper in Eau Claire that tuition is going to be raised, and they tell me, man, I don't like that, but what else are you going to do? What else are you going to do given the situation that you're in? And I guess my point is that I'm going to trust everybody here that has put into this their 2 cents worth, and I would support the 5.5% increase. Would like to sit here and say, no, we don't have to do that. Last year I voted symbolically not to increase tuition. This year I don't think I have a choice but to do that, given the situation. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
All right. Moving towards conclusion. First, Regent Bradley, and then Regent Vasquez.
Well, we live in an evidence-based society, and what we ask our students to do is to assemble the data and do the analysis. And what I think we've heard here is that the analysis has been done, and it's been done with objectives in mind. And I think we need to not leave the impression that 5.5 is arbitrary. 7 with no analysis and no data is arbitrary. And 4% with no analysis and no data is arbitrary. If we were going to set tuition that way, we would just go around the table and ask everybody where their comfort level is. My comfort level is 2.7, but I don't have any analysis. It's just where I feel it would be good, something less than the rate of inflation. So I'm going to vote against the amendment, and I urge people to back our system leadership who have done the analysis and have come up with a recommendation for the lowest rate of tuition in order to accomplish the objectives that we have set for them as a policy-making board.
Regent Vasquez.
The majority of our discussion up to now has been on the percentage increase and variations of belt tightening. And I'd like to draw our attention to the last sheet on the handout on the PowerPoint. And if you look at this list, and I'm sure Kevin or chancellors can even give us other thoughts and initiatives or things that they're going to be doing. So I see this as saying we're not only going to have to do the tuition rate as it is, and yes, we will continue to do some appropriately belt tightening, but I also am satisfied that administration and chancellors in the campuses are also looking for, okay, student, we're not just leaving you high and dry by telling you what it is. We're also going to help you as best as we can to find alternatives, to find resources, to work on hopefully that 4-year guarantee. And so that, for me, gives me a sense that we're just not simply focusing on give us the money and tough luck, you're on your own, how you're going to manage that increase, but that the system and the campuses are also working to try to help students manage that increase. And because of that, because it is that combination of both the frugal spending and the belt tightening, if we can use that, plus also helping the students find ways and mechanisms and methods of trying to work with that tuition that we may be imposing on them, that I cannot be in support of the amendment, and I do ask our regents to support the original motion.
Regent Ryback.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hello.
move it up. Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
So you can move that. Yeah, microphone up. There you go.
Excuse me. Like Regent Pointer, I pay tuition not only for myself, but for my children. And I know in small business, we think often you have to spend money to make money. We've all heard it. We have to invest in equipment. In this case, we have to invest in the students in our state so they make money for all of us. So the students that we're educating at Parkside and UW-Milwaukee, especially for my business, they go out and they get good jobs, And then they come and they build houses and they buy topsoil from me. So I am supporting the increase because I've been on the campuses both as a parent and a student, and I don't see where the administration can cut. I have sat with my finger on the button waiting for my enrollment appointment to come up so I can push it that second to get the classes that I need. I've worked with my advisor when I decided to go for the economics because I found it fascinating. I realized I had to declare pretty soon because one of the classes I needed for graduation is only offered every fourth semester. And I thank my advisors and I thank UW-Parkside for affording me that knowledge. I have a goal, a graduation goal of a certain date. For me, it's a big birthday, and I really want to get out by then. So my thought to the other regions is to think of this as we're investing. We're investing in our students and our state, and we're asking the administration to invest by cutting back on costs. We're asking the teachers are investing by having this salary cap. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask the students to invest in as well in their education, in their future, and in our state's future. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote on the amendment? This is not on the entire resolution, just the Regent Whitburn's amendment. A yes vote would be to reduce the tuition increase to 4%, and no vote would be to keep it at 5.5. Call the roll.
Excuse me. This is just a yes. We're voting on the amendment, not
Right.
on the main
Correct.
motion. So it doesn't stay at 5.5.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Regent Bartel?
No.
Regent Baling?
No.
Regent Bradley?
No.
Regent Drew?
No.
Regent Evers?
No.
Regent Falbo?
Yes.
Regent Higgins?
Yes.
Regent Rybar?
No.
Regent Manydeeds?
No.
Regent Milner?
No.
Regent Pointer?
No.
Regent Pruitt?
No.
Regent Roberts?
No.
Regent Smith?
No.
Regent Tyler?
No.
Regent Vasquez?
No.
Regent Walsh?
No.
Regent Whitburn?
Yes.
3 ayes, 15 noes.
All right, back on the resolution then, without the amendment. There's been a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Regent Drew.
On the main motion,
Yes.
I think the administration has made a thoughtful, reasoned decision with the 5.5, and it's modest given the magnitude of the cuts in state funding. But that being said, people talk about the effect of the recession as why we are where we're at. But I would remind people that we are on a 35-year trend of decreasing state funding for the UW system. And we are trending towards zero. That's where we're headed. This is the second year that tuition will make up a bigger percentage of the budget than GPR. I think we're at 22% tuition, about 19% GPR. And if we allow that to continue, we will continue to trend towards zero. This year we're asking students and their parents to pay more. And, frankly, I was struck by the comments of Regent Rybar regarding the fact that we need to invest in education. I see it a little bit differently, that I believe that the students and their families are investing enough. I believe that our problem is that the state as a whole is not investing enough, and those were choices that were made in the budget. Another important point, I can't in good conscience vote for a tuition increase when there has been no increase in the Wisconsin, the WEG grants have been held flat. So I can't vote for a tuition increase when there has been no increase in financial aid for our neediest students. I don't accept that the new normal that we have to deal with in this state is ever declining state aid, ever increasing tuition, ever increasing student debt, and less access for people of modest means to the UW system. The UW system is too important to this state to accept that as the future and as the normal that we have to deal with. And I understand the thinking that went into the 5.5. I understand that the system has to manage with what's there, but I can't vote for a tuition increase given the situation.
Earlier this morning, I referenced, after the presentation, that it's about students, and more specifically, I referenced the diversity that we need on our campuses. And tuition of this kind does weigh on my mind and shoulders. How will this affect students of color? How will this affect non-traditional students? And obviously my preference is that we make and do everything that we possibly can to enhance their presence on our campuses. And maybe sometimes a public university, for some of them, may be the only alternative. And I speak with some degree of experience in that it took me, I went to a private university, undergraduate university, and I had to take on a tremendous debt of loans because they could not give me all the scholarship or tuition support that would have helped me to come out of there. And Jerry, when you have a sociology degree, it's a lot harder to pay your loans back. And that's what my degree was, in sociology. And so I was extremely happy when years after I graduated from St. Mary's University, which I must say I did get a tremendously wonderful education, but it took me years to finally make my last payment. And my wife and I were extremely happy that that happened. Having said all of that, I think that for students of color and for non-traditional students, a public university education is most definitely a very, very wonderful opportunity at an affordable rate, notwithstanding even the amount that we're talking about here. So with that, I would encourage us to support the resolution at the rate that it has been proposed.
Regent Milner.
Thank you. I spent a fair amount of time preparing for this, and in doing so, I came to the reluctant conclusion that, before I ever came, that I was going to be voting for the 5.5. Having said that, I don't look at this as a $300 to $600 increase. I look at this as somewhere between a $900 and an $1,800 increase over the past 3 years. And looking forward, what are we looking forward to? So I appreciate Regent Whitburn's bringing this amendment because it gave us an opportunity to really have a serious discussion, not just about this increase, this particular increase, but what we're going to be doing as a system going forward. And I also appreciate Regent Vasquez's comment about this improving affordability, because I think there are a variety of strategies that we should and must be looking at, because a continued reliance on the tuition from our students just is not feasible going forward. And I feel very seriously that the institution has looked at belt-tightening for several years now, and there does come a time when we don't have the core courses available for students. Chemistry, at UW-Stevens Point, and there are other core courses that are absolutely necessary. We can't lose the vigor of our institution and our various campuses. So I would encourage us as a group and as a staff and as management, let's take a serious look at how we can do some cost containment, how we can do some different strategies so that we're not looking at a continuing rise on the backs of our students. Thank you.
Yeah, as head of a system that took $1 billion in cuts this past biennium, it pains me to do my other job, and it pains me to be here because it's the same issue. And I agree with Regent Drew. This issue is to a great extent about state support, and if there is not adequate, and this will be just barely adequate resources for these great public institutions to continue forward as best they can under these difficult circumstances, then what happens is we will gradually morph from a public institution to a private institution. And instead of being a good and healthy and great public institution, will be a bad private institution. So we absolutely have to find the resources where we can. The state has, through their decision-making processes, has made the decision to provide less resources. So we have to, in order to maintain the fact that we are a public institution, we must have adequate resources. And so I'll be supporting this motion.
Anybody else on the resolution? All right, if not, go ahead, Jean. This is on the main resolution.
Regent Bartel?
Yes.
Regent Bailing?
Yes.
Regent Bradley?
Yes.
Regent Drew?
No.
Regent Evers?
Yes.
Regent Falbo?
Yes.
Regent Higgins?
Yes.
Regent Rybar?
Yes.
Regent Manydeeds?
Yes.
Regent Milner?
Yes.
Regent Pointer?
Yes.
Regent Pruitt?
Yes.
Regent Roberts?
Yes.
Regent Smith?
Yes.
Regent Tyler?
Yes.
Regent Vasquez?
Yes.
Regent Walsh?
Yes.
Regent Whitburn?
Yes.
17 ayes, 1 no.
All right, thank you for that good discussion on that. And we are, because of that, because it's good, we are running a little bit behind time, so we're going to try to switch things around a little bit because we're still hoping to eat at 12:45. We'll see how that works. We're going to switch because there's one more item we need to vote on, is number 4. This is the board discussion of approval recommendation on financial aid for 13-15. And I'm going to call on Kevin.
Thank you, Regent Smith. And as a preliminary to our discussion of financial aid, I wanted to note for our regents that our friend John Reineman, the Executive Secretary of the Higher Educational Aids Board, is in the audience today for the discussion. John, you want to stand for a minute? Welcome. John was appointed by Governor Walker in December of 2011 to his job. He has a long history serving Wisconsin, including several years with the Wisconsin Counties Association, and he has an even longer history in state government. He worked at the Department of Revenue, the governor's office, and in the legislature. He's also a graduate of UW-Madison and has attended classes here at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and earned his master's degree at the University of Michigan, which we won't hold against him. So, John, we look forward to working with you on this really important issue of financial aid, and I think you heard from a number of members of this board just how important it is this morning. Because the UW must submit its recommendation in time for the Higher Educational Aids Board to develop its 2013-15 budget proposal, the Board of Regents considers this issue at its June meeting today, prior to acting on its 2013-15 budget proposal, which you will act on at your next meeting in August. HEAB, as it's known, the Higher Educational Aids Board, will act on our request and its full budget at their meeting on August 3rd. John, is that right? August 3rd. And so HEAB has requested that we submit our recommendation to them by June 29th. This is all about the so-called WEG grant. That's the Wisconsin Higher Education Grant Program. And I won't snow you with a lot of big-picture financial aid numbers, but a few tell a compelling story, I think, that frames the resolution we're asking you to pass today, and is particularly important given, Regent Milner, your comments and others about how are we getting at the affordability thing from a number of angles. So, just a few numbers. In 2010-11, almost 49,000 UW students received a federal Pell Grant. The maximum Pell Grant for next year will be $5,500. UW system campuses awarded $64.9 million in private scholarships and other campus-funded financial aid to 23,769 undergraduates. Again, that's almost $65 million in private and institutional aid, not Pell Grants, not state aid. Of that $64.9 million, $42.9 million was for need-based aid. More than 1,300 UW students received $5 million in need-based assistance from the Fund for Wisconsin Scholars last year. And this year, 2011-12, the first cohort of Wisconsin Covenant Scholars arrived at UW campuses, with participants receiving between $250 and $2,500 in aid each year from public and private sources under the Covenant program. Last year, more than 30,300 students received a Wisconsin Higher Education Grant, a WEG award. This is the state financial aid program administered by HEAB. In 2012-13, students with financial need will be eligible for $2,384 WEG awards. Students with incomes below $60,000, median income or so in Wisconsin, who do not receive a WEG award are eligible for a tuition assistant grant award from UW system, which helps offset some of their tuition costs if they're not eligible for WEG. So just a few numbers to sort of frame your discussion and consideration of this resolution, and it is an awfully important part of our puzzle of how we keep the UW affordable. But to tell you a little more about that, we'll go back to AVP Frida Harris. Frida.
Good morning again. The WEG program is our primary state-funded financial aid program for University of Wisconsin students, and we have several financial aid programs. These, for the most part, are administered by the Higher Educational Aids Board, and the funding for our WEG program is contained in the Higher Educational Aids Board's budget. State funding for the WEG programs are administered in segments by higher education sector. So there's a WEG for UW students, WEG for private institutions, WEG for tribal institutions, and for the technical colleges as well. They each have a separate appropriation. Our students also have access to the Academic Excellence Scholarship and the Wisconsin Covenant programs, which are also, again, administered by the Higher Educational Aids Board. But those do not have separate appropriations by each sector. Due to the unique structure of the WEG program, funding is allocated specifically for UW students, but we don't have it in our budget. So we have to help provide a recommendation for them to include in their budget request as they move forward in the next biennium. As President Riley has said, that has led to us needing to take action at this meeting regarding a recommendation for WEG funding. Eligibility for the WEG program is determined by using a formula developed by UW financial aid directors and recommended to the Higher Educational Aids Board. Similar to the Pell Grant, which is the primary federal need-based financial aid program, the formula relies on the expected family contribution as determined by federal methodology through the submission of the FAFSA, which is a free application for financial aid. For 2012-13, the eligibility formula uses the expected family contribution of $4,000 with a maximum award of $2,384 and a minimum award of $784. For the last year, the average WEG award was $1,962. As we've previously mentioned, the WEG grant is the state's primary need-based financial aid program for assisting low-income students in attaining college education. Currently, there is a statutory link to tuition increases. So as tuition at UW institutions increases, the funding for the WEG program should also increase, providing new funding for those students at the same percentage as the tuition goes up. However, the statutory link has been suspended, and the WEG program level has been funded, has not been funded in 4 of the last 5 years. So, as you can see, we've got some relatively flat funding there. The flat funding of the WEG program has led to about 8,500 students out of almost 39,000 eligible students not receiving grants due to insufficient funding. In order to address the increase in the number of eligible students who are waitlisted due to insufficient funding, the size of the WEG awards has been reduced so that we can reach more students. The maximum award has decreased by $596 during this period, from $2,980 in 2009-10 to about $2,400 in 2012-13. The proposed 2013-15 funding request for the WEG program includes 2 components. First, the request is to uphold the statutory commitment that funding for WEG UW increase at the same percentage as resident undergraduate tuition. You know, we're using the last few years as a guide in proposing that that link be set right now, assuming a 5.5% increase as a placeholder. This does not presume that tuition would increase at 5.5%, but we have to submit something, and it's the best indicator that we have of what tuition might look like. Even if the tuition increase is lower than this projection, it's important to advocate that we request WEG funding as a way for us to reach out to more students and provide additional funding for those students who have not been able to receive the funding in the past. The second part of the request is that we restore the statutory link that was not provided in the 2011-13 biennium. So the recommendation for the WEG program for 2013-15 is that we request an additional amount of funding that would bring the awards up to $68.5 million in 2013-14 and $72 million by 2014-15 for a total biennial funding request of $24 million. What that is there's a $10 million requested increase in the first year and then an additional $3.7 million requested in the second year. And that's how we get to that biennial total. So basically what we're asking is that the state continues or funds the commitment to students that the appropriation would keep up with tuition. We're asking for a down payment and a first step towards ensuring that all students receive a WEG for which they are eligible, thereby enhancing affordability and increasing access to college education. And this would allow a significant increase in the number of students receiving a WEG. Approximately 4,000 to 6,000 additional students could be served if we receive the funding that would be requested. So this last slide presents how this recommendation looks compared to recommendations that we've had in the past. The 2013-15 budget request attempts to balance the recognition of the state's fiscal concerns with the need to provide additional access for UW students to an education for all Wisconsin residents. So that basically concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Regent Bartel.
I'd like to move the approval of Agenda Item 4. This is the funding recommendation for financial aid that Frida was just talking about. I've had the thank you.
Second.
I've had the pleasure and privilege of serving as a region representative on the Higher Educational Aids Board for the last several years, and it's a lot more fun giving money than it is taking money away. But this is the other half of the net cost of education for our students. This is it isn't just the sticker that we talked about before, the tuition increase, but this is the other part of it. And for many, many students, this makes all the difference in the world. As you heard, there is a link, a statutory link in state law between the funding of for WEG and the increase in percentage of undergraduate tuition, and that link was suspended, which meant that we had fewer dollars to distribute to students who have a need and who qualified. And so this recommendation that we are considering today will restore that statutory link going forward, and also pick up the deficit that we encountered in the last biennium. Regent Drew, this addresses the issues that you were raising, and I hope that everyone here will support this request for funding.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're having some discussion up here on how to handle our other main item, the discussion of the 13-15 biennial budget update, especially in view of the very good discussion we had on tuition. And here's what at least Michael Morgan and myself and President Riley have said. It would not do justice to that discussion to try to cram that into 15 or 20 minutes, because there are a lot of issues, a lot of discussions I think we need. And so what we're proposing is that we put that off today and come back to that in some other fashion, whether that would mean, and yes, both of my colleagues on the right and left are saying no to that July special meeting, but somehow we obviously have to have another forum to discuss that, not just go into a meeting where we're going to vote on that. But it just doesn't, with all of the good discussion we had earlier, it doesn't do justice to try for Michael or the chancellors to try to cram that into 15 or 20 minutes. So with your indulgence, we'll put that off for today, and we'll adjourn for lunch, which is, where, Jane? Ballroom East. All right. We should be back at, can we be back at 1:30? Let's try. We're not going to make 1. 1:30.